21. It says, his Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. Luke chapter 16, verse 10 reads, he who is faithful in a very little thing is faithful also in much. And he who is unrighteous in a little thing is also unrighteous in much. And 1 Corinthians 4:2 says, moreover, it is required in stewards that one be found faithful. And as I was going over the word steward, I referred to the dictionary, and it said, it's one who is entrusted with resources or responsibilities on behalf of another. And there's another word that rhymes with steward that has a different meaning that is sometimes confused between the two. The other word is Lord. Lord means owner, a person having ultimate power or authority over others, or ownership of property. One of the mistakes that we are prone to make as human beings is confusing steward with Lord. Sometimes we get into positions of authority, and as opposed to acting as stewards over responsibility, we act as if we are Lord, as if we own the title, the position, or whatever it is we are functioning in. But the important thing I believe to remember is that we are all stewards. None of us are lords. And if we are stewards, then it's important for a steward to be faithful in their obligation if they expect to be further rewarded and extended with further favor. So today I want to remind you that all of us in this place are stewards and not lords. And therefore, we should seek to be faithful in whatever we've been entrusted to and realize that we are not the owners of it. Amen? Amen. Bow our heads together. Father God, we thank you once again for allowing us to gather. We thank you that your word reminds us that we are stewards, not lords. You are the only Lord. Father, help us in the execution of our duties to remember that it's required of us that we be faithful in the little if we want to receive more. We thank you for guiding us, directing us, giving us wisdom to proceed in the right way today. In Jesus' name, amen. Our Father, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, honor, Lord, forever.
Good afternoon, honorable members. Honorable members, when the business of this House suspended last evening, the honorable member for Marathon had reserved the floor. The chair now recognizes the honorable member for Marathon.
Mr. Speaker, much has happened since the last budget debate. Our nation, our country faced the worst economic crisis in our history. The entire economy shut down. Every hotel, every seaport, every dock, every marina, every restaurant, every airport, everything. As a result, our economy went into a free fall. As the pandemic dragged on, day after day, week after week, and month after month, many small businesses were shuttered, and thousands of Bahamians were finding themselves on the unemployment line through no fault of their own. As a result of COVID and the economic collapse, the jobs simply disappeared, vanished overnight. Many, many thousands of us who never before in their lives, never had to seek government assistance, did so. This government, the Minister administration, was there at the beginning with food assistance. To the tune of tens of millions of dollars. We provided salary assistance to the privately employed and self-employed. This helped tens of thousands of Bahamians meet their expenses with the dignity they deserve. DOC also ensured that small business grants were available to help small enterprises pull through. But this was not without a price to be paid by us all. This was not without a cost. It added to our deficit significantly. Because of these direct actions, though, our economy is now poised to move forward. We will not come out of this economic crisis overnight. It will take disciplined spending by government and individual sacrifices from us all. We are doing all that we can to spur job growth and stimulate investment. We will continue our efforts to recover and rebuild from an economic disaster that has touched the lives of all 400,000 of us. My fellow Bahamians, even though the outlook is positive and things are improving, we are certainly not out of the woods, not by a long shot. The devastation caused by COVID hit every single island, every settlement, every neighborhood, and every community in our country hard, dead hard. And no one was spared. When a catastrophe of this scale hits so many, so hard, for so long, we may tend to lose sight of the horizon. It's only natural. After all, it's not a real recovery in the hearts and minds of people until they can feel it in their own lives and in their own pockets. And this is exactly what we intend to do. This is why we decided to extend the National Assistance Program, because we know and we care about the many out there who are still having a very tough time. In fact, many people listening to me right now may still be jobless, or may have lost their homes, may be sleeping in cars, may be struggling to find a meal. These are very challenging times in many ways. In the Marathon constituency, we are just as committed, and we echo the steps of the national program. Our food assistance program is in its 6th phase, and we've fed thousands upon thousands of marathoners. Since 2021, since April of this year actually, we've offered free breakfast on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at Lou Adley Park for the residents of Marathon. Of course. But Mr. Speaker, it would certainly be wrong for us as a government to mortgage the future of our children to pay for today's needs and for today's debts. Albeit these debts have been made sharper and exasperated by a global pandemic. It would be equally as calamitous for the government not to invest in the services, though, that are critical, the infrastructure that is necessary for our young people to thrive. This is our focus, and this is what we are about. And this is why tuition is free at University of the Bahamas. This is why we invested so heavily in preschool and free preschool education for Bahamians. That's why BTVI has no tuition. This is an opportunity for all young people to take advantage of. And I congratulate the Minister of Education on his focused and effective work. This is why our leader, the good Doc, paid such close attention to the redevelopment of the Southern Recreational Grounds, bringing together private sector and public sector firms with one focus, one goal, to improve the life of the quality of the lives of our citizens who live in the over the hill community and upgrade significantly their access to recreational features and Wi-Fi, an investment in the people. You see, that's why. And of course, this is why we paid such close attention to getting it right, finally getting it right at the New Providence Sanitary Landfill, fixing the long-standing problem once and for all. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, the absence of fires at the landfill, the lack of the need to evacuate schools and shut down businesses is a testimony to our success. But Mr. Speaker, right? Because I was listening to the debate, and if you listen to them, we ain't do nothing. But I know what they do. Because, Mr. Speaker, for the first time in the history of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and certainly for the first time in this honorable house, a Minister of Environment is reporting on a Ministry of Environment that exists in law. Why? Because we enacted the most comprehensive suite of environmental legislation in the history of this country. In addition to the Ministry of Environment, which is a fundamental ministry, which allows for the ministry to access grant funding and allows for Bahamian citizens to access it as well. But we also created the Department of Environmental Planning and Protection, first of its kind in the country. We banned plastic, single-use plastic, and I know the member of Parliament for Exuma, he was one of the first to support it. But more importantly, beyond the jobs, Mr. Speaker, we strengthened the legislative network in order to ensure sustainable development in our country as we move forward out of this global pandemic. And in the process, we strengthened the protection on our mangroves. We passed laws to protect our genetic resources and our traditional knowledge. And we continue in the Ministry of Environment to lay the foundation for sustainable growth. But Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding all of that, as a result of the pandemic, there is an anxiety that is out there in our community. I know this from campaigning door to door and meeting people all the time. The pace of change, Mr. Speaker, has been rapid. Feelings of not being able or not being in complete control of your financial destiny. Feelings like you can't just make enough, you can't just get there. These feelings will arise. That sense that you'll never have enough money to purchase that lot. That feeling that you'll never be able to save enough money to build your dream home. We know what this feels like, Mr. Speaker. I know what this feels like. That's why we developed 40 service lots, Mr. Speaker, in the Sunset Close extension and Lionel Davis subdivision and sold them at cost, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is why we are just about complete the installation of the infrastructure in the Carmichael Village subdivision phase 1. Where 100 lots will be available and you'll be able to purchase service lots for $15,000, Mr. Speaker. This is why we did it. Right now, sir. And when you look at what we are doing in the Ministry of Environment and Housing, more particularly the Department of Housing, and you look at what is happening with the offering being made by the Office of the Prime Minister for another grouping of people, what you have is the most innovative, groundbreaking government housing system ever devised thus far in this country. And what's going to happen in the result is more Bahamian homeowners, more young people having that dream fulfilled. And so this is why we will seek public-private partnerships to further develop the remaining parcels at Carmichael Village and those in Aberfoyle. I'm pleased to report. The generation of Bahamians, this generation of Bahamians, all of us, we have been tested like no other before. Dorian and COVID unleashed tremendous hardship, pain, and loss, and of course, economic change. And as the dust settles from all that has happened, a new world is slowly emerging and taking place right before your eyes. No more will a high school leaving certificate guarantee you a hotel job for life. Those days are gone. We saw entire industries get wiped out and relocated overnight, dependent only on good internet connection. I urge all young people, you must make yourself ready for this world. A mix of face-to-face and virtual has taken over in the global aftermath of the pandemic. It will never be the same again. We did not become the successful nation that we are today, Mr. Speaker, by luck or by hoping or by burying our heads in the sand and running away from the tough issues. We are here because our forebears, the generations before us and generation after generation of Bahamians have always adapted to change. Our elders conquered their fears and adapted to change. We are them and they are in us. So too then, we shall adopt the same bravery. As they created a future for themselves and for us, we will shape a future together. No government has all the answers, Mr. Speaker. Government's responsibility is to provide the policy framework to stimulate growth. Too little environmental regulation leads to unsustainable development and poverty. And with the potential rise and growth of the cruise ship industry in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, that is not a route we want to go down. But too much regulation chokes the economy, and slavish obedience to outdated rules is counterintuitive. There have always been people amongst us, they're always out there, quick to capitalize on fear, fake news and false claims. They were the ones making the accusations that we mishandled the COVID response. Yet, who seriously believes that they could have done any better? No one. Who seriously believes that? No one. The thing is, you see, about the other side is that they have a track record. Fact is, we know their ideas already, and we know what their ideas brought to us already. Successive downgrades, disappearing BAMSI insurance policies, and the worst oil deal in the history of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. During the course of this debate, Mr. Speaker, and indeed in the months leading to the next general election, Bahamians will be called on to listen, understand, and decide. Do we return to the failed economic policies of the past, or do we continue to build a stronger future together? We can progress or regress, advance or continue to stagnate, move forward instead of backwards. For most Bahamians, myself included, we prefer progress, advancement, and forward movement. Mr. Speaker, we all know and understand, or we ought to, that our economy cannot survive another complete shutdown. It cannot. The large hotels and mega resorts cannot operate by continuously opening and closing. The government can't operate. The government needs revenue. For better or for worse, the government continues to pay all civil servants on time. No layoffs during the pandemic. We paid the staff at Bahamas Air, Nassau Flight Services, throwing a little something for the people at the hotels and small businesses. But the government needs its revenue now. And the most effective way, you as a citizen, the most effective thing that you can do to stabilize our economy and to create a better environment for yourself and your fellow Bahamians is to get vaccinated. Because vaccinations save lives. I've had both of my jabs, and I urge all Bahamians to do so. But of course, Mr. Speaker, these are not ordinary times. If they were, we would have continued to close the fiscal gaps that they left and close the deficits that they created. We would continue to have elevated our economy from their successive downgrades. But these are extraordinary times. Mr. Speaker, we are the descendants of slaves and migrants, adventurers and loyalists. A diverse country. We have lived together for almost 400 years, building and supporting each other on the anvil of sacrifice and a peaceful democracy in the process. Reason for this, Mr. Speaker? The reason for our strong ties as a speaker does not derive from our shared language and culture, nor does it singly derive from living in proximity to each other as we do. Instead, it is rooted in the shared values and beliefs that we have, that have united us for centuries and will continue to do so. These values of who we are as a people, and ultimately what we will become as a nation. Do we heal the wounds of the past, or do we allow our values and core beliefs to be sacrificed on the altar of short-term political gain? Let us have no illusion about this and about the road ahead. It's going to be challenging. Things will be tough. We may be tempted to stray the course. To survive, we must believe in each other. It is essential. We've been down this road before. No matter our background, our elders endured more than we can imagine, and yet we are all together in the same boat right now. Our sure and certain future lies in us working together to bring that boat, that ship, to safe harbor. Never before, Mr. Speaker, has the government been challenged to do so much for so many. We believe, nonetheless, that this budget represents the best hope for a way forward. Marathon supports this budget.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many? The chair recognizes the honorable member for Seabreeze.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure if I'm as short as my senior. Certainly, I will do my best to make the contribution I can to this budget of 2021-2022. Then the king commanded that Daniel be thrown into the den of lions, and said to Daniel, "Thy God, whom thou serve continually, he will deliver you." Daniel was cast into the den of lions, and the king sealed the stone with his signet, that the purpose might not be changed concerning Daniel. Then the king awoke early and went to the den and called to Daniel, said, "Daniel, O Daniel, is thy God whom thou serve able to deliver thee?" And Daniel replied, "O king, live forever." Mr. Speaker, I thank the good Lord for allowing me to add my voice to this final budget debate of this administration. It is my pleasure and privilege to make a contribution on behalf of the good constituents of Seabreeze to the annual budget debate 2021-2022. Mr. Speaker, I have had 8 years thus far in frontline politics. Oh my, how time flies. Beginning my career at 38 years as a senator in 2015, elected member of Parliament 10th of May 2016, winning over 3,500 votes, the highest ever in that constituency. Appointed as a member of the cabinet on the 15th of May 2017, sworn in as a member of Parliament May 24, 2017. I continue my journey today as a backbencher, 24th of February 2021. 8 years of service, for which I am grateful and will forever recognize the opportunity given to me by the Free National Movement under the leadership of one Dr. Hubert Minnis, Prime Minister and member for Kalani constituency. Mr. Speaker, before I commence, allow me to congratulate you and your dear wife on the celebration of your anniversary, the last I was here. This year, I likewise celebrate 24 years of marriage to one Von Tenken Road, whose family hailed from the quiet settlement of Bennett's Harbor, Cat Island. I have loved and married him from the tender age of 20, and together we have produced 3 children, whom he has ensured received top education from one of the most stellar institutions in the Commonwealth today. Together we built a beautiful home, a house that we made our home from the age of 22 in the Western District of the island of New Providence. The rest is history. Mr. Speaker, on this occasion, I want to use this opportunity to congratulate him on his latest achievement of obtaining a double master's from Oral Roberts University to complement his master's in education and bachelor's degree in business. Mr. Speaker, he is a hardworking man, and for him finding me, I am forever grateful to the Lord. Today, I honor him in this honorable place. Mr. Speaker, I have made a vow before God and man to love him, and that vow I have kept and will continue to keep with the help of the good Lord. Mr. Speaker, may the Lord continue to keep your marriage and mine and the marriages of all members. After 24 years, I believe I am qualified, my call to say that similar to everything else, hard work, long suffering, patience, understanding, and unconditional love are critical keys to marriage success. Mr. Speaker, had it not been for my 11 years of sacrifice as a police officer, 10 years called to the Bahamas Bar, counsel and attorney at law, 24 years of serving in front line of the church work and leadership, I might have thrown in the towel of my political career. However, I have chosen to allow every experience to build and not broke me. However, I have chosen, and so, Mr. Speaker, to the Reverend Dr. Charles W. Sanders, my first pastor, I say to him thank you on this occasion. To my mother, the pastor and prophetess Lorraine Russell, my spiritual mentor, I say thank you. To my grandmother, the matriarch of the Bullitt family, hailing from the Ferry Exuma, I say thank you. Superintendent Philip Roll and Superintendent Hutchinson, my police cadet instructors, they've molded me, and I say thank you. Assistant Commissioner Seymour, my then police training instructor of the academy, I say to all of them, thank you. They would have instilled the discipline of public service in me, And Mr. Speaker, they have all made me the individual I am today, and hopefully an example for others to follow tomorrow. Serving in public life, and particularly public political life, is no joke. And therefore, it is important, Mr. Speaker, in my view, that those interested in sitting in this place and those chosen by the people are individuals with a record of public or community service. Public speaking skills and academic degrees are in to help one withstand the blows that accompany this post. And the people need representation that will last from the beginning to the end, Mr. Speaker. They say tough times don't last. Tough people do. Mr. Speaker, that is what I have found in the member for Angliston, a tough woman, a woman small in stature but tall in spirit. Though I was introduced to politics on the other side of the political divide, she, as an experienced politician and former cabinet minister, in her own brilliant way, mentored me and gave me sound advice, not only to survive today, but for the long haul. I have found her to be a stateswoman of the highest order, and I have been honored to serve with her in this honorable place and to observe the advocacy and diplomacy of Queen's Counsel displayed by the member for Cat Island and Rumkey in San Salvador. And no, I have cut no deal with anyone. I have offered my service to the Free National Movement, and on that, I say no more. Today, I salute the member for Angliston and refer to her as the Iron Lady with heart. I also want to take this time early on in my presentation to congratulate Madam Justice Juanita Denise Lewis Johnson on her ascension to the bench as Justice of the Supreme Court, together with Madam Justice Janine Veach Gomez and Madam Justice Camille Darvel Gomez. I have had opportunity to interact with each of them, and I have found that they are intelligent women, again, of the highest order, who will guard the justice system to the best of their ability with fairness and in accordance with the law. I can only trust that if the good member for Angliston ever retires political life, she would likewise bear her still either on the bench or as Queen's Counsel. Congratulations, Mr. Speaker, I believe is also comely for Marie Darvel Miller. Is that I don't know whether that is the daughter of Justice Rufo Darvel? Mr. Speaker, I have known the young lady, Mr. Speaker, and she is a bright and beautiful and intelligent young woman. And again, it was a decision well made. I congratulate her on her ascension as stipendary and circuit magistrate. Mr. Speaker, approximately 3 weeks ago, the Free National Movement chose to ratify another candidate in my stead to contest the upcoming general elections. Given the truth of my labor, investment, and sacrifice, given the overwhelming support of the Seabreeze executives up to the time of that decision, and the ongoing support of my Seabreeze constituents over the last 5 years, counting the year before the election, the people, Mr. Speaker, the last 5 years to the people, this decision and the events leading up to it was sorely disappointing. Nevertheless, I am reminded of the lyrics sang by the late Reverend James Cleveland, who well sung, "Nobody told me that the road would be easy, but I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me." The songwriter also said, "I just can't give up now. I've come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, but I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me." Mr. Speaker, let it be known that the record of my work will show that my every intention, got to get the camera here, was to continue serving the people of Seabreeze. And I am confident that they would have re-elected their Seabreeze Member of Parliament. However, Mr. Speaker, I accept that the party has its prerogative and can exercise its powers entrusted in it the way it sees fit. Today, I publicly say to all of my Seabreeze team members, it is well. My only wish is that your words be guided the truth. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the political turbulence this decision has caused throughout the constituency, every day I get a call. The fact and reality is I have been elected by the people of Seabreeze with all of my strengths and weaknesses, like every member or other member. And my duty is to serve them faithfully to the end. Indeed, I have used my voice, my talents, and my finances to ensure this government sits as it does today. Unlike the good member for Port Charlotte, I can only pray the powers that be can offer the reciprocal as I complete my tenure. According to St. Matthew 7 and 12, and I quote, "Therefore, all things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them. For this is the law and the prophets." End quote. I don't know why all the members that sit in this place, Mr. Speaker, that have homes, cars, and are building homes and other projects, why one would go so far, or who would go so far as sending a drone over a house under construction and under mortgage. Under construction and under mortgage. Mr. Speaker, ministers receive a minimum remuneration of $99,000 per annum. And I am sure I was the least among the many. Some receive additional housing allowance and other allowances, but surely one can use their funds, their funds and that of their family the way they see fit without being unjustifiably accused. Mr. Speaker, it is my view that we could have and should have done some things differently, but we are where we are, and it is what it is. Mr. Speaker, it is my belief that the true test of democracy would have been to allow the constituents to say whether or not they wish for the MP to return. However, there are those likened to King Darius's advisors who are determined that I will not return as an MP for whatever their reasons. And while they have their say, I'm crazy to believe, I am fully persuaded that the King of Glory will have his way. Mr. Speaker, it is not my intent to criticize the work of the government. I want to make that clear. And I still stand and sit as a Free National Movement member. On that premise, the Bible exhorts us in 1 Timothy 2, 1-3. We ought to render supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks for all men, for kings, and for all that are in authority, and that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in godliness and honesty. For this is good and acceptable in the sight of God, our Savior. Hence, today, at this 2021-2022 final budget presentation, my contribution will be based on the fact that we must accelerate recovery and restore national and socioeconomic growth as declared by the mover of the bill subject to debate. However, the impacts of climate change and a turbulent global financial environment continues to make life difficult for our country and our people. Considering the harsh realities of Hurricane Irma, destroying large-scale agriculture and livestock, Hurricane Dorian eradicating lives and shelter and eating away already scarce resources, and COVID-19 and its variants wreaking havoc on the financial, social, emotional well-being and the health of nations around the world. Nothing short of the very best candidates, members of parliament and members of the executive, equipped with the attributes of ingenuity and agility, will be able to successfully navigate the nation's ship and its people through these perilous times to a safe and sound destination of growth and recovery. Mr. Speaker, saying it is not enough. The ingredients for sound leadership and good governance must be there. And experience mixed with new and novel thinkers will be crucial to the mixture of this pot of stew. Mr. Speaker, a good start would be to ensure that each person elected and appointed as a member of parliament has the character, the credentials, the background, and wherewithal to contribute to the strategic growth and recovery of the country at the pace necessary to produce the intended results. Gone are the days when we can simply appoint to this house or appoint to the other house, who we like and who others like. We are at a crucial period. The people need members of parliament that will work, members of parliament that show they care. And at the rate of unexpected incidences on a local and global scale, we must accept that time is not on our side. The political games with people's lives, Mr. Speaker, is simply unhelpful. The best and the brightest must be elected, and all others should stay home and watch the show. We need people who know or knows what it takes to serve people. For example, President Joe Biden served in the military. Former President Barack Obama was known for his community work, and so was Vice President Kamala Harris. Such experience of life of sacrifice for others without pay or little pay will cause one to be moved with compassion for the people and love and automatically show love, appreciation, and respect for the public service. But only who feels it will know it. On that note, Mr. Speaker, I am compelled to add that today's cabinet is equipped with a number of former public servants and former cabinet colleagues. Mr. Speaker, were very supportive of me as a member of cabinet and did as much as they could to lighten my journey. But the load was mine to carry, and I carried the weight the best I could with the hand I was dealt. I wish to publicly thank them all for making my journey easier. And I ask that the same courtesies be extended to me, be extended to the good member for West End and Bimini, Honorable Pakeisha Parker Edgecombe, whom I congratulate on her ascension to the office of the executive. If possible, I believe the other two females, the member for Michael and Fox Hill, would do well if given similar opportunity, but they have served well and faithful. A male senator became a minister for 1 week a few months ago, so surely this is possible for two hard-working elected female members. Got a clap for yourself. Mr. Speaker, many may not be aware, and others may simply not care. But we who sit here sacrifice much with no guarantees. For some of us, we closed our professional practices, left our jobs, missed important family events for the last 8 years for me, and I believe the member for Kalani said he had to miss his dear brother's funeral, all in service to country. From my readings, the privileges and benefits, however, afforded to the pre-independent MPs are not offered to us today, but we carry a greater burden. Hopefully one day, we as members can work together to ensure decent salaries for members of parliament and ministers who work 24 hours, 7 days a week, and for senators who have similar responsibilities as those of the lower house or lower chamber. I sat as a senator and attending every event as a dignitary, drafting and preparing and bringing remarks, attending parliament for days on end, etc., at a salary of $250 per week is a salary structure that requires urgent review. Somebody say print that. Senators work hard too. As a senator, citizens also look for assistance similar to their request of members of parliament. And it is no reasonable answer to say one knows the salary before they take the job. As a human resource specialist, it is standard practice that the job should be commensurate with the salary and vice versa. And national office should be held in a more respectable regard, in my view. After all, senators at times even serve as ministers and are called on 24/7. I've had the experience. Mr. Speaker, in an environment where demands have increased due to incidences such as Dorian and COVID-19, to my mind, adjustments should have been made to operations and capital budgets to strengthen the direct assistance to constituents by members of parliament. The reality is, most, if not all, members of parliament had to spend of their own resources, whether directly or indirectly, to meet the great demand of the people during these most challenging and unprecedented times. If they were given the resources the MPs could have provided, to my mind, for the government a more personal touch that the people could feel and appreciate. As it stands now, notwithstanding the government's multiple assistance programs, including food assistance to the tune of an excess of $30 million in 18 months, the people's cry are either that COVID-19 relief program is inadequate, not reaching the masses, or the provision is simply not enough compared to their degree of hardship. This is the reality in which we find ourselves today. So if people are not satisfied with our service or our decisions, they will ask with an attitude, what public health and safety measures exactly require $25 million? How many micro and small businesses receive tax credits? And how many micro and small businesses per constituency receive grants for small business relief of the $53.3 million expended in 12 months? People will ask, and have a right to ask these questions if you don't meet their demands. People will ask questions because as taxpayers, they have a right. and they want to connect the dots of what was borrowed to what was spent and the benefits they received either directly or indirectly. And as a transparent government, we have a duty to publish those answers. Mr. Speaker, in immediate response to the COVID-19 pandemic, in the Seabreeze constituency, we ran a home delivery food assistance program from May of 2020. And do you believe, Mr. Speaker, that program continues today? If constituents call, my team delivers the prepackaged goods, or they collect them from the office. But you know, the team cut down now, so I had to go hire some other people. But Mr. Speaker, it is what it is. The office, nevertheless, good weather or bad weather, I told them, has to be open to the people we gave a vow. So the office is open weekly. Notwithstanding, I said it's got a higher pay. But the program continues and must continue so long as we are in this emergency state. Very serious about that. And so many persons have not returned to work and now cannot return to work for reasons, including the fact that a child at home in virtual school must be monitored by an adult, if not a responsible teenage student, who themselves are challenged. Mr. Speaker, in Seabreeze, I am proud to report that we were among the first to purchase and contribute laptops and tablets for our students in September of 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, to meet their educational needs in response to the crisis. We cannot blame the people if they say they do not feel the Small Business Development Program or that the National Insurance Assistance is insufficient at $100 per week when considering their standard of living and commitment. Their feeling is reasonable in the circumstance. Reality is that $250 million financing or the $35 million budgeted for the SBC or the $4 million support to Bahamas Development Bank for small businesses does not translate to social currency if the people cannot keep roofs over their heads, pay their bills, or make a better life for their families. Now, I believe we did our best, and we did much good. Somebody say I mustn't say that, but I have to speak the truth. We did our best. We did much good. However, we could have and should have done some things differently. But we are where we are. And it is what it is. Mr. Speaker, when considering the social, economic, and political landscape for approximately 4 years, it is my conclusion and the overriding theme of this contribution that we did our best. We did much good, but we could and should have done some things differently. However, nevertheless, we are where we are, and it is what it is. Today, I stand to give account of my stewardship for this year and a summation of the work I have done over the last 4+ years. The Speaker, firstly, as Member of Parliament for the sensational Seabreeze constituency, former Minister of Social Services and Urban Development, former Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, Chairman of the Commonwealth Women Parliamentary Association, Bahamas Branch. I will add my observations of our performance as a government and offer any advice that might add value to the remaining months of this administration under the good member for Killarney. I hasten to add that I did not accomplish as much as I did by myself, but I wish to thank my ministerial staff, whom I will always remember, the senior officers and staff of the Ministry of Social Services and Urban Development and the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture. I had a wonderful experience working with persons like Lillian Plant-Forbes, Elaine Williams, Darren Turnquest, Sandina Neely, Rowena Poitier Sutherland, Telford Munnings, and many others who made my journey a little lighter, notwithstanding the challenges and the politics maybe. In my estimation, Mr. Speaker, the budget is a means of determining what government services will be provided and how they will be financed, in addition to accounting for the previous year's expenditure and projecting future short and medium-term expenditure in a manner that is fiscally responsible and economically viable. Having served as a minister just shy of 4 years, it is my observation that a comprehensive annual financial report, or CAFR, would be helpful in monitoring the financial performance of all agencies under the government. To date, I do not believe that all agencies of government are required to provide this report. Certainly, the National Sports Authority was not required to do so, and neither was the Urban Renewal Program. But they are not alone. The authorities, to my mind, subsidized by government must be better regulated and control mechanisms implemented and monitored to ensure adherence to proper fiscal policy and budgetary allocations. The same standard held for one entity must be applied to others, regardless of personalities. Operations based on personalities instead of policies only make room for mischief. Mr. Speaker, I want to begin by thanking the executive of the Seabreeze constituency for their overwhelming support of me during the last 5 years, counting the year before election. One has never met so many hardworking and loving individuals, but they were all disappointed to see the position the party took, notwithstanding their expressed support for me. Again, I hold no malice or ill will and wish the FNM all the best. But the situation, like many, most unfortunate, to my mind, distasteful. As I said, we did our best. We did much good, but we could have done some things differently. Nonetheless, we are where we are. I don't think anyone can disagree that it is what it is. Notwithstanding, I must lament that a constituent told me for the first time, he stopped and round me out and carried on and fussed me. He said, for the first time, Madam Roll, the Seabreeze MP has not recommended one contractor or employee for a garbage contract or a sidewalk installation and many other jobs in the constituency. He shouted. That constituent warned me. He said, 2 years ago, he said to me, notwithstanding you sit as a minister, the party is not showing their support for you as they ought to, and are doing in other constituencies. I didn't know what he was talking about. Where they all, he said they were building schools, bridges, roads, parks, and other investments. The gentleman put me on the spot, older gentleman. Those were the words of the constituent, not mine. This was my maiden voyage, and the help and support I thought I must say to him and to as many who thought I could have or should have done so much more. And let alone we did a lot. But I would receive, the help I thought I would have received was not forthcoming. But I pressed on with the team, and today I am proud of our accomplishments. Mr. Speaker, I'm the first female MP for Seabreeze on the FNM side, and I was certainly disappointed to hear that the courtesy is extended to my male counterparts. That's the constituent told me. I don't know whether it's true or not. I know I stand to be corrected. Who served before me were not extended to me. It was most unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, but I am not one to cry over spilled milk. And Mr. Speaker, nevertheless, we built a better Seabreeze anyway. Sometimes it's not what you do, but how you do it. But we are where we are, and it is what it is. However, understanding that the people of Seabreeze were not to blame for this misfortune, it took my personal funds and resources to give them cleanup jobs, etc., throughout the community, to keep the community clean and to ensure as many could eat for the last 5 years. I'm talking about salary. Mr. Speaker, the currently cleaning program is partially a government program and a Seabreeze MP and constituency initiative, Mr. Speaker. All in all, the goal was to build a better Seabreeze, and together we did. Seabreeze is better because of Alice, John, Nicholas, Monique, Keisha, Natasha, Richard, Danny, Glenado, and many others. They were faithful stewards. Together, we kept Seabreeze going and growing despite the odds. With their help and the support of constituents, the better Seabreeze was realized, Mr. Speaker. I think they're on the way with it. We prepared a photographic account of the stewardship. Mr. Speaker, as soon as it arrives, I will lay it on the table of the House. Mr. Speaker, but the age-old adage says, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I'll speak here and I'll show you the pictures there. Being about the last of all equal ministers to my mind who have not been ratified, no, not to my mind, for a fact. Being about the last of all equal ministers who have not been ratified on the 12th of March, 2021, I wrote to the party notifying them that I would not seek renomination at this time. Mr. Speaker, the constant humiliation and distraction was not helpful. At a time when we needed to focus on the growing instances of murder and violent crimes and joblessness and homelessness and other pressing issues and COVID-19 and vaccines and masks, Mr. Speaker, people issues must take precedent over political agendas. How can all these other trivial matters take priority over the needs of the people? I could not believe it. Well, 2 weeks ago, in a row, 3 days in a row, when I wasn't on the top of the Punch's front page, I was in the Grapevine. And it just from running on from one thing to the next. Don't know me no more than the man in the moon, Mr. Speaker. And, while I love and respect the people of Baintown, I just must make the record clear here. I have never grown up in Baintown. I don't know the streets in Baintown, save a street that my father lived in with his friend, and I think it's Augusta Street and Whooperdale Lane. I don't know any other street in Baintown, but I promise you I'll make myself memorable for Baintown. I'll familiarize myself a bit more. But I didn't grow up in Baintown, so I'm sorry, I'm not a Baintown girl. But the people there are loving as my father is. They are kind, but I grew up until I was 9 on East Street with my grandmother and then with my mom in the Southern District. All right? I just want to make that clear, get that information, misinformation clarified, And so, Mr. Speaker, and so I told the party, in essence, in submitting this letter, to go and find your best candidate that can top 3,500 votes, to work for that, over the one woman that bore the burden to represent the female gender and agenda for our country in the cabinet and outside for nearly 4 years under the most extraordinary and unprecedented circumstances. Mr. Speaker, I don't stand here to say I'm perfect, but the facts speak for themselves, and someone's work must be worth something. Mr. Speaker, we did our best. We did much good. However, we could have done some things differently, but we are where we are, and it is what it is. This is my story, and I'm sticking to it. Mr. Speaker, in case anyone stands to assume that I was under some investigation, and this was the reason for my not being nominated, let me rest here. I requested clarification or further clarification of the statement made by the cabinet, which incorrectly insinuated that my resignation was as a result of some investigation. The good member for Kalani, to some degree, clarified in a public statement to the press that there was no investigation concerning this member. I thank him. Mr. Speaker, sometimes, however, what you give to the world, you cannot take back. Appreciating the hurt and harm this has caused me, and I do not wish on any other, I will endeavor to guard my words here so as not to damage the character of any member here, to hurt their family, their livelihood, their character or reputation. I have 3 children. I have a husband. I have a mother, and I have a father like everyone else here, Mr. Speaker. I say no more on that. One might say that within reason, things could have been done differently. We all paid a heavy price to sit where we sit and to help others sit where they are seated. None of us are here alone, and that help ought not to be undervalued, underestimated, underappreciated, or dismissed. It is my opinion that we could have and should have done some things differently, but we did our best. We did much good, and we are where we are, and it is what it is. Serving as Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture and formerly the Minister for Social Services and Urban Development, with the guidance of the senior public servant responsible for finances of the ministry, I gave approvals only that were in accordance with the provisions of the Cabinet's Manual of Responsibility, the Government of the Bahamas General Orders, particularly following Sections 9 and 10 on the rules of conflict of interest, and procedures specified in the Financial Administration and Audit Act as amended in 2010. Mr. Speaker, no ministry I kept held money. I want to make that clear because the public seems to think that there was some chest of money that a minister holds. Matter of fact, when I went to Youth, Sports and Culture, I got texts and calls saying I'm holding the checks in my office for the various groups or something like that. What's going on here? What checks? Ministers don't sign checks. Ministers don't hold checks. Let me finish my story. Mr. Speaker, no ministry I kept held money, first thing. Secondly, Every financial transaction of a minister is based on a recommendation by the permanent secretary, and in the case of statutory bodies, on the recommendation of a board. In urban renewal, all contracts for the home repair programs, where we removed staff from more than 500 homes throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas in my short tenure there, were all by way of 1, recommendation of the board, 2, advisement of the senior public servant, normally the permanent secretary, and 3, processing of financial transactions fully controlled by public servants. All funds are finally approved with the clearance of the Ministry of Finance and issued by the Treasury, which office does not issue one note without written authorization from the permanent secretary, not a minister. So a minister cannot call anyone and say, release this money now. Only the public treasury, and they only deal with the permanent secretaries. Notwithstanding for the Constitution, ministers are supposed to be the chief advisors of the ministry, managers of the ministry, or head of the ministry, and advisors to the Honorable Prime Minister. But that is the system that we find ourselves, and we respect it, and I believe I have followed those rules. Mr. Speaker, financial transactions in government are subject to strict process, and no ministry I held had large budgets to do anything. It was austerity for some. Nevertheless, what was spent on necessary projects were recommended by the relevant authorities, approved by this minister, where and when I was satisfied that policies were followed and authorization was given by the Ministry of Finance and payments issued through and by the public treasury. I rely on the good Auditor General to state if any transaction under my tenure and at my approval were contrary to the rules. I do trust, however, that being my first time, that before now, if it were the case, something would have been brought respectfully to my attention and guidance given. Mr. Speaker, if I was a bit stringent, it was to the extent that I took interest in ensuring that projects were completed as scheduled and on budget. I met too many unexplained cost overruns, both in urban and at the National Sports Authority, and all transactions must be justified and accounted for under this former minister's leadership. Did persons try to bully me as a young female minister? Nobody asked me, but until now, of course. Was I protected against the bullying? Maybe not. But I stood my grounds, even if I stood alone. And today I am where I am, and it is what it is. One side of a story is good until another is heard. That is what you want to hear. Both with respect to the Urban Renewal Program and the National Sports Authority, I ensured that no contract was issued that I knew of without the express recommendation and approval of an independent quantity surveyor. For both ministries, where there were no quantity surveyors, I made sure quantity surveyors through the permanent secretary was identified. I cannot tell you how they look today, but they were hired because I saw their reports. The project managers monitored projects, and little or none could come back to me for approval for cost overrun. The former DPM and Minister of Finance, the MP for East Grand Bahama, kept me on a tightrope, and he did an excellent job in his policies and attempts to stabilize the economy. Mr. Speaker, we had our days in cabinet, but I have determined he's a humble man. I have determined he's an honest man. I said we could have done some things differently. We did much good, but we are where we are, and it is what it is. Mr. Speaker, both ministries I carried were fraught with challenges and a history of corruption. These are the facts. These are the facts. But in the labyrinth of inequality, female leaders are known to be appointed, Michael, to such posts to their disadvantage. Nevertheless, as a minister, we do our best to overcome, or rather, Parker Edge couldn't better tell you that. Nevertheless, as a minister, we do our best to overcome the challenges with the help of our leader. Mr. Speaker, if a challenge arose with respect to any transaction of a ministry, which is expected in the operations of any business or administration, you expect to hear problems, then the minister should be the first to be apprised to address the matter. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, one day in this Westminster system, I'll say it while I can, if the Lord be not come, we will show respect for each other as we do those of a different color and gender in some instances. I say amen to myself. Anybody got to say amen to me? Pulling down and destroying each other has no place in a bed of Bahamas. And as for me, I refuse to be a part of the nonsense. This is why I made it a point not to lambaste any of my predecessors, albeit on the opposite side of the political divide. This is why all the nonsense in the various periodicals, no comment. One above me has spoken. It is what it is. May the good Lord keep me and all of us. Amen? Every predecessor before me was called names. I'm telling you what I meant. Accused of impropriety. Every minister and every ministry that I went to were called this and were called that and were called the next, Mr. Speaker. But I refuse to add insult to the injury of their loss. Criticism and unwarranted suspicion are clouds over every political and leadership office, and even the chief of offices. You better remember this. Every one of us in here are held in suspicion. Everyone. If you live long enough, every one of us will see. If you stay in here long enough, the story will tell. We ignore some, though. We ignore some, and we make a mockery of others who we feel are not worthy to be protected. It's called politics. So the MP for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador said publicly, I appreciate the strength in politics you have demonstrated, notwithstanding the trials you have endured. No matter what they called you, you kept on serving. And not one day I heard you accuse another colleague of anything that would damage their political career. I've never heard it. I guess who feels it knows it. For this degree of political maturity, acumen, and decorum, you have earned my respect. But experience has been my greatest teacher. As colleagues in the political fraternity, let alone the same party, we owe it to each other to give each other the benefit of the doubt, because today for me and tomorrow for you. We all carry burdens and benefits of the same profession. Mr. Speaker, it is my prayer that one day people of color would be as loyal to each other as we are to those of a different hue, because we are all human beings with families. We did our best, Mr. Speaker. I want to make that clear. It's my running theme. I don't want to stray from it. We did our best. And to the critics, we did much good. But yes, we could have done some things differently. But we are where we are. And it is what it is. Mr. Speaker, as former Minister of Social Services and Urban Development, I endeavored to make a difference in the organization's structure, system of operation, and delivery of service. Structure, system, service was the theme. Service to the most vulnerable among us calls for a great degree of empathy and respect for people. I found that there was a need for increased staff training and exposure, upgrade to working environments to motivate excellence in performance, and the need for a greater system of accountability. The Speaker, the audit report said that people who died received their sight. I don't know, Mr. Speaker, and so we tried to create a system to correct that. It is not my role as a minister to simply criticize, but to fix it and create policies that were going to correct the anomalies that I found, Mr. Speaker. It gives me no joy to just criticize. It gives me no joy to lambaste and pull down another human being, and it shouldn't give you any joy. When I say you, I mean all of us. We cannot say we are change agents and demonstrate no willingness to change anything or anyone simply to secure selfish political ambition. Social services needs an act and regulation to govern its operations and bring more accountability to the quality of service it delivers. In this year's budget under social services, the ministry received an increase of $1,984,466, while the department received an increase of $21,126,541 per page 135 of the budget. This is a significant increase in the department's budget. department delivers the national social assistance programs, and hopefully more funds will be allocated to help with rent and medical expenses, seeing that so many other independent agencies, particularly the churches, graciously run the many food programs. People who are unable to work due to the pandemic need help to pay their rent and their mortgage and to purchase school books, etc. for the children. That's their cry on the road. The cry is not that they need food. You got cousin, auntie, brother, and sister. We have them. They need shelter. They need shelter. That's the main thing. People's houses are being taken. They're being put out on the streets. People are living in their cars. Can we get direct assistance to these individuals by way of social services? And they do it now. But I'm saying, if we're increasing the budget, that item can be increased specifically to allow that department to do that which is needed to assist those individuals greatly in need. Regarding the very important urban renewal program, I really don't see how it can really maximize its potential with a budget of approximately $6 million. While social services provide assistance, urban renewal delivers social enhancement and empowerment programs. Assistance and empowerment programs must work hand in hand to transition persons from assistance to empowerment, to self-sufficiency, and to independence. Mr. Speaker, social assistance goes beyond food and even shelter. It extends to education, an efficient system to deliver the programs offered, and the record of the Nisha role. And for the record, some things for the record I have to get clear, if it's okay. Member for Exuma, to get some things clear for the record. And for the record, the Nisha role did not stop the RISE program. The program expired according to the Inter-American Development Bank, and the government of the Bahamas, under the circumstances, did not find it prudent to renew that particular program. Perhaps, yeah, to be truthful, I can't keep taking the fall, Pastor Mark. I can't keep doing it, you know? And so perhaps the technocrats, not the minister, can provide a report to the good minister to show the viability of the program, because the IDB determined that the program fell far below targets. And I am sure that that occurred because of reasons out of the control of the then minister at the time, whom from all accounts is a woman of compassion. But Mr. Speaker, like I am, women in leadership do our best to navigate through what we call the labyrinth. And we must find a way to do this while working with and not against each other. Nonetheless, accomplishments while Minister of Social Services and Urban Development included hiring more than 200 staff members for all urban centers on every major island. The MP is here. Did we hire them for you? All major islands. That's the stress within the first 5-6 months I was there. Implementing a management system and hierarchy structure with trained managers and deputy directors, etc., for the efficient operations of the program. Commencement of restoration of all urban centers. Commencement of improvements to social workers, work environments, and child care facilities. System of rotation of social workers for improved accountability. When I arrived, it was reported to me that social workers ought to have rotated every 2 years. It was my information that for the 5 years, there was no rotation. So we had to adjust that for accountability purposes. Drafted a social services program guide, and we created and published the Urban Renewal Program Handbook. Mr. Speaker, those are some of the highlights, and I just wish they would reach with my photographic account. Mr. Speaker, as Minister of Social Services and Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, I now turn to my account there very briefly. Upon entering the ministry, I took the first 6 months to observe the operation. They said I was the first female Minister of Sports. I've never had one before. So now you know those men was another knocking match. They were boxing me left, right, and center, but I took the blows. And I still get a blow. But it was determined that this was a ministry that represented the heartbeat of the people. It was mandated to serve a purpose and to do so under the conditions I found it. It required employees to possess a passion to serve. People, purpose, service, passion was the theme. People, purpose, passion. Employers required late hours with delayed pay, or none at all. They had to pull extraordinary talents and skills outside their job descriptions to motivate the Bahamian people, to preserve and advance culture, transform our youth, and develop athletes and the industry of sports. Let us be clear. Lanisha wrote, I have to get it clear again, Pine Ridge. Let us be clear. Lanisha Roll did not cancel the IAAF games here in the Bahamas. To my mind, it is an excellent initiative that the government simply did not have the resources to maintain. The solution, to my mind, it wasn't me. It wasn't me again. I don't know how much things I'm going to take the blame for, but songwriters say one day at a time, sweet Jesus. That's all I'm asking of you. But the solution, to my mind, and this is very, important to the sports community, the solution to my mind is a simple renegotiation of the terms of engagement and liberty granted to the good Minister of Sports to work with the Bahamas Olympic Committee and other sports organizations to work with the World Athletics to produce the best and palatable proposal. That's a step in the right direction, Mr. Speaker. Now, I was not afforded that liberty, but the good gentleman, I'm sure, will probably get that. Got an increase in budget. I had a small number to work with. Mr. Speaker, I also believe that a sports academy is a viable solution to many issues plaguing our youth. I want to say that again. I also believe that a sports academy is a viable solution to many issues plaguing our youth. A school focused on sports can build the sports industry, instill discipline in children, provide scholarship opportunities, expand the sporting job market, and attract other events and athletes to our shores. We cannot continue to put all of our eggs in one basket, Mr. Speaker. And no matter how we try to tell the generation before us, why don't you consider something else? I don't understand that. But one day, sports can do it. I have seen it, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to be enlightened in that regard. As Minister of Sports, to bring more accountability to the operations of the National Sports Authority, I directed the creation and publication of a handbook for standard operating procedure. This was accomplished thanks to the current general manager. I might add that an executive chairman would be helpful for the NSA, and there is a need for the hiring of a company to focus on promotion of national and international sporting events in conjunction or partnership with the various local sporting organizations. We don't need a sham company now. We need people who are experienced and a company experienced in promotion and can deliver on the promise of marketing, promotion, and negotiating events. We don't need a sham. While facilitating, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to make it clear. As proposals were submitted, one or two of them, I was guided by the permanent secretary, guided by the heads of the areas, the director of sports, that the proposals were not viable, Mr. Speaker. And I don't know about the character of all of it. I don't do all of those checks, Mr. Speaker. I leave that to the Minister of National Security. But some proposals were not viable. And therefore, I was not able to advance them to the cabinet as I wished because I was guided by East Grand Bahama, the good permanent secretary, as you all told me to. And Mr. Speaker, I still get hit a blow for following the rules. Mr. Speaker, while facilities management is one thing, promotion, marketing, and events management are distinct functions needed to ensure ongoing revenue generation for the upkeep and use of national sports facilities and for the development of our national sporting enterprise. While serving as Minister of Sports, I am delighted to have had the opportunity to oversee the renovation of the National Boxing Center, the start of the restoration works for the Kendall J. Elias Gymnasium post the Hurricane Dorian shelter usage, to make the facility operable, particularly to the basketball community and for other purposes, including bringing the gym up to international code, as recommended by the quantity surveyor. We were also about 90% completed with the restoration of the South Beach pools, a plan for an office for staff the plan was already drawn by the Ministry of Works. I want to make this clear here. the South Beach Pool. Came to my office. I found staff crying, waiting on me, literally crying. They are using the bathroom in the bush, Mr. Speaker. I took my time. I'm sort of a hands-on person. Drove out there, inspected it with the permanent secretary and the various heads, and they saw the deplorable state. Not even a bathroom door on whatever bathroom was there, Mr. Speaker. And we thought, with the little funds that we had, began renovating, and with the help of the good member for Carmichael and the good member for South Beach, Mr. Speaker, we were able to bring it up to speed. And Carmichael certainly had much more than I did, and he certainly invested in it. And to him, I am very, very grateful, Mr. Speaker. And so that is with the restoration of the South Beach pools. Everything by quantity surveyor, everything, Mr. Speaker, through the permanent secretary, everything inspection, quantity surveyor, and Ministry of Works, Mr. Speaker. The last, just for the good member for Central and Grand Bahama, a plan was drawn to provide an office for the staff to work from, Mr. Speaker, and we ensured they had a bathroom so the ladies don't come crying to me again that they were using the bathroom in the bush. Yes, I got a beating for helping them, you know, but we are where we are. It is what it is. I wish to thank the good members for Carmichael and South Beach, Mr. Speaker, and I already said that. Also, during my tenure, the landscape of the Queen Elizabeth Field and greenery surrounding the compound was also upgraded. And as many walkers, joggers, and sports teams enjoy the beautiful manicured landscape, it was not like that when I arrived. I walked the entire field. I'm a former police officer. I have no problem walking. I walked the entire field, even do it in law. And I'm doing conveyancing, St. Anne, I actually go and inspect the property. You know, because too many persons, Mr. Speaker, even in that profession, they were supposed to be sold one property, and then big mistake in the conveyance, it's another. Supposed to be property 65, they sold property 64. Hello? And so, Mr. Speaker, you have to sort of take a hands-on approach when you know that there's a problem in an area. And so, Mr. Speaker, the landscape out there is beautiful now. You can pass and enjoy the greenery. And Mr. Speaker, I just enjoy seeing persons of their teams now. They go, they exercise, and they just love it, and they have commended me for it. And the team, like I said, and so I'm very grateful. But the budget for the Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Culture has not changed substantially from what I've seen. From $18,938,186 last budget year to $19,030,586 this year, a difference of $92,400. Essentially, the budgets prior to Hurricane Dorian were restored. These budget allocations were previously reduced due to our stringent fiscal management policy. Hence, nothing there to glory in as yet. But one would not expect that during this time. See page 142 and 143 of your budget. However, I will reiterate the need for ongoing investment in professional staff training and workshops. It's needed both in Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Culture, and it's needed in the Ministry of Social Services and Urban Development. If we look at those items, no training is going on for staff, no development, no upgrading. These things are important, as nothing on the budget was spent on staffing last year. Mr. Speaker, as Commonwealth Women Parliamentarian Association, we did a number of things, and the highlights, to my mind, is the women traveling to Grand Bahama. And there we took a donation, a financial donation that we took out of our pockets to assist the persons there who suffered from the ravages of Dorian, lost their homes, living in tents, Mr. Speaker, and certainly we were moved. And so to the women of Parliament, I say thank you. Mr. Speaker, another way, during the pandemic, Mr. Speaker, and I just wrap this up, to say, another way is to identify programs. We can identify programs to extend the skill sets of women and opportunities for multiple fields. I'm speaking about the Department of Gender and Family Affairs and the need for them to be strengthened, or that department to be strengthened for women, and for them to work along with the women of Parliament to ensure that we bring issues to the fore. Mr. Speaker, as I close, women at the top tier of political leadership are not failures or mistakes, but we are different. We think differently, we take different approaches, and we would do things differently. It is our nature. and no woman should apologize for being who they are. I stand by my conviction that we did our best. We did much good, but we could have done things differently. Nevertheless, we are where we are, and it is what it is. I also want to indicate with regard to the straw vendors, Mr. Speaker, if you'd allow me, I'm very, very concerned about the straw market still being concerned today. After 18 months, Mr. Speaker, we must consider a better solution for those women. 98% of them are women, Mr. Speaker, and they cannot feed their families on $100 per week. We have to find a way to get them in that bubble. If Bahamian staff members can go to work in the hotel, thousands of tourists are coming in, and we're going to boast about that, Mr. Speaker, then we must find a way to get the straw vendors back to work. Mr. Speaker, if you would permit me another 3 minutes to close. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And so while the hoteliers, they can get a break from paying their electricity bills, and these are the cries of women, Mr. Speaker, their light bills are turned off, mortgages are going into forfeiture, all sort of things are happening, Mr. Speaker. Children are being taken out of school, insurances are lapsing, Mr. Speaker. It is no answer of $100. Not this long. The people need help, the women need help, and they don't need it next election, they need it now. They need monies in their pockets now. I might as well tell you, women, if we don't clap for ourselves, then anybody can clap for us. But Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, and so as I want to close here. My overriding drive was to bring women together as chair of the Commonwealth Women Parliamentarians, because I believe and know that if for one day we can unite regardless of our differences or opinion and political preferences of what we think of each other or who should lead, we will win the war of inequality. I believe the only thing holding women back is the lack of unity. Until the unity comes, or until we find it, I, like others, will continue to sound the alarm and to press on to persuade women that together we can lead too. Where can I hear the women now? Mr. Speaker, now to my final closing. Believe it or not, that's it, 24 years. Believe it or not, although I was the youngest in the cabinet and the only female, the fact is I was a senior in political life to many of the ministers. I'm not going to call their name. Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to call their name. They're all older than me. I was the youngest. But the first thing I was told in politics was that your seniority is based on your election or appointment to political life. And there's a pecking order. Not so for the women, ma'am. We are where we are. It is what it is, Mr. Speaker. And so these are the political stripes I bear, and that of those that went before me. And we must not give up. Angleston, Michael, Fox Hill, and West End, and Bimini. We must work together to bring about the change we want to see in and out of this honorable place. In an extract by Bahamianology, this is very important. When Bahamian women finally got the vote, they did not vote for a woman in 1962. Women, our single goal must be to reach political parity in this place and in the executive. I believe that the men, our husbands, brothers, sons, uncles, and fathers, no matter how much they love us, will not hand it to us on a silver platter. We must find the courage of the late Doris Johnson, who, when denied a voice in Parliament, created a parliament of sorts in the magistrate court. We must use the wit and negotiation skills of the late Mary Ingram, spouse of a politician, the boldness of Eugenia Lockhart, who accompanied Sir Henry Taylor to England to present their petition for women's empowerment in 1960. It took a team of women united for one cause. That cause in 1960 was the right of women to vote. Our cause in 2021 must extend to the right of women to lead, and to lead equal to men in a democratic society. The Bahamas' version of the People's Act 1918 is a good start. Parliament can make it policy for political parties to run candidate slates representative of the populace, including proportionate representation of our youth, the disabled, and all demographics. Then and only then will a government show a serious step towards gender parity, equality, and social justice. The risk remains. If those individuals fail, it will be on them, but at least candidates would be reflective of the population landscape and of people given the opportunity to choose their representation. Also, where only females are running in a constituency, it should be mandatory for male candidates to present and vice versa. It is my view that until we have balanced representation, a balanced budget will be highly improbable in the true sense. Mr. Speaker, this is the good member for Kalani's first shot. My final statement now. This is the good member for Kalani's first shot around as Prime Minister. And regardless, I wouldn't speak it, I'm gonna speak that, no. And regardless of his missteps, which many may see as missteps, and the accusations called against him, whether true or not, the Free National Movement Party has given him the opportunity for a fourth consecutive time to allow the constituents of Killarney to choose whether or not they want to continue his representation, regardless of whether he is favored in the eyes of the public or not. None of us that sit here are perfect, but I believe all sitting members of Parliament should have been given the same opportunity in a true democracy. 1 Corinthians 4, 7-9 states, and I quote, I say amen for myself, especially for what we've all gone through together. But we have 1 Corinthians 4, 7-9 says, but we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellency of the power may be of God and not of us. We are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed. I now end where I began, committing to your hearing the story of Daniel's trial, which concluded, and I quote, then the king arose very early in the morning and went to haste unto the den of lions and cried, O Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God whom thou servest continually able to deliver thee from the lions? And Daniel answered, O king, live forever. Mr. Speaker, we did our best. We did much good, but we could have and should have done some things differently. With 11 months maximum before election, the only thing or the advice I would give is that we do have some time to do some things differently. The question is, are we willing? Notwithstanding this advice, the fact and reality is, we are where we are, Pine Ridge, and it is what it is. Seabreeze supports the 2021-2022 budget. Mr. Speaker, may the good Lord bless this government. May the good Lord bless the constituents of Seabreeze, those that serve in this upper and lower chamber of Parliament, and may the good Lord continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Member, I must say, in particular, that I support the view expressed in your penultimate and your ultimate paragraphs, particularly with respect to women involvement in politics, and with respect to the respect that all members of Parliament should be given with respect to the selection, particularly incumbents, in offering themselves in the constituencies where they were selected. Your speech was very provocative, and I should not be getting involved in the debate. But I must say this, since we're dealing with money, I sat in the front of a person last year who had made a public declaration that he does not believe in God. And he gave me all reasons why no food will be coming into this Parliament for the members of the Parliament last year. The circumstances have deteriorated since then, but I see food in the Parliament this year. Again, the level of disrespect for the presiding officer of the Parliament on both occasions where the Speaker was not even consulted. The courtesy was not extended. And I believe the essence of your presentation, Seabreeze, that is the crux of the matter. It's a matter of respect. We are all leaders in this parliament. Just recently again, that same individual who made a public declaration that he do not believe in God sat across the table from me and indicated that the cost for the upgrade of the Hansard was overestimated. And I demanded from him specifics to justify that claim. Because whenever a man who has declared himself to be an atheist sits across the table from me, my first reaction is the devil is a liar. And that person could not tell me why he wanted to cut $600,000 off the cost for the upgrade of the Hansard and the Parliamentary channel. Those are the type of matters that this Parliament and legislative branch of the government must get corrected for this democracy to deepen and for us to advance as a people. I have a whole lot more to say, but I don't want to say it at this time. But I just want to let the contractors know who gave me some blows for taking away the contract for the food for the parliament, that it wasn't me. You know, yeah. It wasn't me. As many? The chair recognizes the honorable member for Pine Ridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much. And I want to say to Seabreeze, I feel you, and I thank you. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say thank you. I feel you as well. God grant to me clarity of thought, precision of expression, bend my will to thy will, that the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, you God, my strength and my Redeemer. 1 Chronicles 16 and 22 also found in Psalms 105 and 15. Touch not my anointed, and do my prophets no harm. Psalms 37 and 1. Fret not yourself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass and withered as the grain herb. Proverbs 29 and 26. Many seek the ruler's favor, but every man's judgment cometh from the Lord. Mr. Speaker, it is with profound pleasure and immense gratitude that I am able to be vertically erected due to the good and gracious people of the Pine Ridge constituency, located in Grand Bahama on the island of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. A people who have stood by me and to this day continue to encourage, inspire, influence, and invigorate me to represent, typify, and or personify their needs in and out of this place. Again, I'm grateful for the people of Pine Ridge, and I look forward to our continuous love affair and relationship in spite of the upcoming season. When the dust is settled, I expect to be back here in this place by the grace of God. Mr. Speaker, 4 years and 29 days ago, the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas went to the poll and elected this government on the premise that it would be the people's time. It was a promise that made people feel good about themselves and reluctant about anybody else having the job. The people now felt that it would finally be about them, their needs, their concerns, their ambitions. Bahamians everywhere felt that despair would be eradicated and invaded by hope galore. Notwithstanding, here we are, 4 years and 29 days later, 48 months and 4 weeks later, 212 weeks and 6 days later, 1,490 days, 35,760 hours, 2,145,600 minutes, 128,736,000 seconds. And it seems like we've moved from bad to worse. Ever since these years, months, weeks, days, hours, minutes, and seconds, even prior to the competent authorities' predominance, the people of the Bahamas felt like since electing this government, they have been incarcerated, trapped or in prison, if you please, in a room of deceit, lying on the mattress of depression, with their heads on the pillow of economic hardship, with the nightstands of arrogance, lit by the lamp of incompetence. Now they have the mitigated gall to come back and say to us, it's about our future. Mama told me, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Mama also said, and my mama is like most of the Bahamian mamas, and she said, you could fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. They really want us to believe like it was the people's time, that it's now about our future. Now you want to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present. Mr. Speaker, there may be some validity to their team. I'm just not sure the pendant swings in the direction of the people. I think they misplaced a word in that sentence of that theme. I believe the inference as it relates to the campaign slogan really meant to say or imply it's really about their future and not ours. Bahamians, remember, many of you before you were elected to this place, you begged them to vote for you. You were humble in your demeanor. A number of you didn't have 2 dimes to rub together. You got rich and you switched. He's getting ready to make his exits. Some of them, before coming to this place, were working 2 jobs, trying to make ends meet. And some of them now boast about they have this education and this qualification. Yet with all of that, many of them had no pull, no push, and no clients. Their election to this place was the best thing that ever happened to some of them since sliced bread. However, they want us to believe that they're the best thing for us since peanut butter met jelly. Mr. Speaker, lest I be misunderstood, I have no problems with people advancing their status in life. My problem is and remains with people who walk on people to get in front of people. The people who gave them the opportunity to advance. They fail to remember, as high as you are, you better stay up there. Because if you ever come down, you have to pass all those people on the way down you used to step up on to get to where you're at. Like the late Sonny Johnson sang, most Bahamians now are in this state. I used to could afford a piece of steak. Now I can't even buy a slice of cake, end quote. You promised the people of the Bahamas this would be their time. And the present leader of this government stood up in this place and had the audacity to tell the Bahamian people in his next term, he will consider the poor. Now you want to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present? This crew really believes we are a bunch of astronomical ignoramuses. Now people are asking everywhere, Mr. Prime Minister, where is your compassion? Where is your heart? And how do you now see your soul? Here is a prime minister who has squandered every opportunity to do right and make an impact in the lives of his citizenry. A leadership that has misspent his inheritance given to him by his political father, whom he insulted nationally on more than one occasion. He has single-handedly alienated the founders, financiers, and foot soldiers of his political organization that granted him the privilege to govern. He doesn't understand what it means to be magnanimous or to be politically astute. He has divided his organization and hence the country. Now he wants to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present? Mr. Speaker, I appreciate and respect authority. I came and come from the church. We proliferate and promote submitting to authority. If my political leader or bishop wants respect, they can receive that from me every day, all day. Nonetheless, the arduous position I found myself in from day one, it seems like leadership requires worship rather than respect. It seems like under this present leadership, one has to worship, kiss the ring, and practically bow down in order to come up. When one refuses to do so, they are castigated, ignored, ostracized, and victimized, even by contemporaries who also do it in the name of leadership. To this cause, people were promoted not based on their ability or even longevity to the organization, but for their aptitude to complement, condone, and be complicit with leadership. Mr. Speaker, based on what I've just sought to explain, we have persons in this place who hold position. Some sit in this place and have made little contributions to the debate. Some persons in here only speak during the budget debate because they are compelled to do so. Some persons with position spend more time heckling than they do debating. Some could hardly show up to this place prior to COVID-19 with position, while others would consider this the most intellectual cabinet ever assembled under an F&M regime. There are still persons in position, and my emphasis is position, that could hardly read, count, and or pronounce. Neither has there been any improvement, and that's not the issue. Neither has there been any improvement or growth since coming to this place. Yet they hold position, and the public is embarrassed by their performance and lack of growth in the parliament. Mr. Speaker, let me get to the crunch of what I'm really saying. The leadership of this country would rather put people in position despite their inability to perform. If you kiss the ring and treat leadership majestically, you're golden. Meanwhile, the Bahamas have to settle for people in positions in this place whose performance has been mediocre at best. The present leadership, and here's the point I was trying to get to, the present leadership has devalued the currency of this place to the extent that everyone, their mama and Mickey Mouse, is trying to get into this place. Why do you think we have so many new political organizations? Your performance and that of this government have left much to be desired. Mr. Speaker, this government has disappointed the public at large. Members of your own organization have become disheartened. Foot soldiers won't even allow you to put your foot on at their door because they've become so discouraged. Now you want to convince us it's about our future when you have ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present? Mr. Speaker, what this government is selling, people aren't buying. They're trying to convince the masses that they were dealt a bad hand, that catastrophic and cataclysmic occurrences is the justification for their poor execution and governance. Unless the honorable member for Kalani has forgotten, Mr. Speaker, through you, other prime ministers have also had their share of natural disasters. One prime minister, even before he was sworn in, had to deal with the monstrous storm of Andrew. Another had to deal with multiple storms back to back in Grand Bahama, to which we've not caught ourselves ever since. Then, of course, there was 9/11, the economic global depression, the fall of Wall Street, the straw market fire, the attack on our Marines by the Cuban. All of this is a part of the job when you wish to be Prime Minister of the Bahamas or any country. Stop whining as if you the only one who've encountered natural disasters or man-made occurrences. Mr. Speaker, those opposite my present position in this place miss the boat, which they sometimes do. This isn't about Dorian or COVID-19. It's about your performance and management during and thereafter. We expected there would be fiscal adjustments and economic reviews. What we did not expect was the way you made us feel, your lack of sympathy, empathy, and compassion towards us as citizens. Even when you thought you were doing good, the manner in which some of your ministers spoke to us and at us as if they were doing us some favor and or they were spending their own personal money. What is so ironic, this was coming from people who we know where they came from, what they had, and we knew who they knew before they got here. Stop taking things personal. This isn't about the people. This is about the people of the Bahamas, their livelihood, their existence, their country. People get elected to this place and make believe they own this country. However, the people have a way of letting you know otherwise. You know what I think about this? And I think about this constantly as it relates to post-Dorian for Grand Bahama and Abaco. Mr. Speaker, what would have happened to these two islands if it had not been for the assistance of the international NGOs. The government was lost. Even the food that they gave us was donated by the cruise line. Without the international NGO, thank you, Jesus, Grand Bahama and Abaco may have become non-existent. Harsh reality is, people in both of these islands are still, in this very day, waiting on the government to assist them completely. This, they helped some and left some incomplete, and others have not yet been assisted, even though they have been promised to be. Now, you want to convince us it's about our future when you have ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present? Mr. Speaker, I confess that COVID-19 has taken a global task, and the Bahamas is no exception. Nevertheless, we're speaking to the handling, the management, and the functioning during and thereafter. This government, led by the competent authority, this one-man band, who now tries to convince us that the competent authority is the cabinet of the Bahamas when the Constitution says otherwise. I have advised him from this place that he should not be making these decisions without the inclusion of others and with the inclusion of the opposition. Now they're trying to come back in a few weeks with something that would look different than the one-man band. Too little, too late. Now you want to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present? Mr. Speaker, I said before in this place that this competent authority was nothing more than a flirtation with dictatorship by the Prime Minister, who seems more comfortable with competent authority than Prime Minister of the Bahamas. Which brings me to this next point. Why would a Prime Minister who truly believes in democracy and the democratic process go around the country campaigning, talking about 39-0? Which true Democratic leader in any House of Congress would wish to have all the seats? Now, if it's given to you, that's a different story. But he's asking, does that sound like a man who's democratic in his views and has the country's best interest at heart? There he goes. He's off. He's off Bahamas. He's running. He's leaving. Having all the seats in governance is not good for any country, democracy, and or stability. This Prime Minister wants all, not some, all. But again, Mama said, he who wants all gets none. Mr. Speaker, the competent authority is the competent authority who may have closed our borders too early. It's the competent authority who caused the workers in the hotel to be furloughed and not get paid fully. It's the competent authority who doesn't seem to understand that people have not worked for over a year and a half since he assumed the position. It's the competent authority who's responsible for the closure of the many mom and pop businesses that will not come back. It's the competent authority who's responsible for the many businesses being in the red that were once in the black. It's the competent authority who acted incompetently and opened our borders, causing greater infections on the greater infection of the virus amongst us. It's the competent authority who caused us hurt in burying the dead and little celebration in our marriage union. It's the competent authority that stopped the laborers from having a motorcade on Labor Day, but allowed his political organization to have motorcades and campaign on the streets in numbers. It's the competent authority who knows we're in a third wave with more hospitalization and death. Yet he seemed more relaxed in the third wave than he was in the first and second wave, with less transmission. It's the competent authority who's allowing hotel owners to pay 700 employees in installments rather than their full severance package. It's the competent authority who continues to give unemployment checks at $100, which can't pay the light bill, gas bill, water bill, phone bill, bills. It's not enough for groceries to feed our children or ourselves. It's the competent authority who does not seem to get it. We don't want NIB payouts. We're grateful, but we would prefer a job rather than payout. It's the competent authority who in his psyche, along with his government, believe they are empowering us, not recognizing that we have become impoverished through their leadership. It's the competent authority who speaks about accelerated Bahamas recovery plan when it was the competent authority who slowed down the Bahamas economy and virtually left us without a plan. Now he wants to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present. Mr. Speaker, last budget I stood in this honorable place and told those opposite my position in this place that the national deficit will reach 10 billion before this crew leaves office. Farmers, as usual, they laugh, they scoffed at my words, but my words have proven to be true, like so many other things I've spoken from this place. Due to the level of borrowing in this fiscal year, the interest payment for the upcoming fiscal year will be higher than what the government will spend on education and healthcare combined, to the tune of $500 million plus. We are in an economic quagmire. The fiscal outlook is very scary in this place. This government has basically doubled the national debt since coming to office. They speak with so much certainty as it relates to our tourist product. The harsh reality is they will not see the numbers they saw pre-COVID-19 anytime soon. The cruise line have to gain credibility with its clientele once again. And if one has to be vaccinated to cruise, the global numbers are not favorable in this regard, as many are posturing and are waiting and are in a wait and see position. Domestic travel seems to be more common in the global sphere right now, as opposed to international travel due to COVID-19 virus. So diversification must be pursued nationally rather than discussed. You speak about the reserves being strong, yet I'm being told you borrowed to strengthen the reserve. That can be somewhat misleading from an economic perspective. You borrowed $4 billion, yet you're just now speaking about refurbishing the Princess Margaret Hospital and National Health Insurance. $4 billion. And there's nothing that we can point to credibly, touch, feel, and see that you built. Not even a school. You didn't even complete the one the last administration started, leaving office in Holmes Rock, Grand Bahama, nor the administrative building in Central 8 Mile Rock. This government doubled the national debt, borrowed profusely with no regards to the massive debt leaving on the backs of our children and grandchildren. I, for one, won't be surprised, Exuma, if it reached 12 billion in the national debt before they leave office next year. Now you want to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present? Mr. Speaker, this quicksand government, I told them that's what they are. One thing about quicksand, The more you wiggle, the faster you sink. Has anybody besides me noticed? Every time this government makes an announcement, it goes in the opposite direction of what they say. Every announcement is a wiggle, and it seems like every wiggle is further sinking this government. You're shoulder deep now. Now you want to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present? Mr. Speaker, they boasted as if they did us some favor to tell us that no government worker was laid off due to COVID-19 and that they kept them on the job so that they might maintain their dignity. For this, I thank the government. However, Marathon, what about those 2,500 plus we laid off when we came to office and told them during the campaign that they would not be laid off? What about their dignity? We have hired political cronies who just arrive on jobs. We've made them permanent and pensionable, while people who have been on the job for 10 plus years have not been extended the same privilege. You increase VAT on the backs of the poor and middle class of this country, and you did so before strengthening the economy and ignoring the cries of the people not to do so at such a high level. Yet you said it's the people's time. It certainly was a select group of people's time: the elite, the rich and famous, the bureaucratic conglomerates, the oligarchs, who you put in charge to feed us black folks. Even when you tried to tax those folks, they wrote one letter and the entire government position was rescinded. We common folks took to the streets by the hundreds and thousands. You scorned and laughed at us. Now you want to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present? Let me give this government a harsh reality with the trinkets that you've placed in this budget. You talk about initiatives to second home owners to rent to their second homes for Airbnb. You talk about second home owners when the vast majority don't have the first home. So who are you talking to? There are people who have crown lands granted to them, but no conveyance from government. You talk about tax breaks for land ownership out west for 40,000 and 50,000, except you're amongst the rich or the child of the rich. The average Bahamian can't afford it. Let me give this memo to the government. Many people are not working. Businesses are closed and have been so for months. Banks are foreclosing on homes. Tenants are being evicted every day. People are living out of their cars and in abandoned buildings. Bahamians are hurting. They're broke. This government don't seem to be able to repair them. Our cupboards are bare. The electricity is off. Many don't know where the next dime is coming from, while most of you in here sit sumptuously at the king's table, wanting the rest of us to be satisfied with the crumbs that fall from the table. Well, the Bahamian people want me to remind this government, it's not your table. We're going to dismiss many of you from the table in short order. There will be many ones and dones, and I pray not to be amongst them. Now you want to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling dreams and schemes in the present? The way some of you sit in the cabinet, let me say it again. The way some of you who sat and sit in cabinet allowed this economy to depreciate Many of you would not allow your business to operate the way you operated in government. Many of the business decisions this government has made on behalf of the Bahamian people, you would not have made it for yourselves. So why pursue such an adequate business opportunity towards us as a nation? Example, the purchase of Alukaya, which is still not sold. We paid over $100 million. The last I heard, it's costing us $1 million per month for operational expenses. The justification for the purchase, which was the employees, you then turn around and let them go. You purchase from the same people an airport for the amount of $1. So you said. Then you told us that you gave them $1 million for the workers that the government never employed in the first instance. So what you doing paying workers off? So in reality, you paid for a dilapidated airport that the owners got insurance for and walked away again. You paid $1,001 for this airport, and you want people with common sense to believe you only paid $1 for the airport. Mr. Speaker, let's take a look at the Rand Memorial Hospital. This has been a political football every time election comes around by this and successive governments. Haven't you noticed, Bahamas? Every election year, the governing party always talks about hospitals and national health insurance. And then when election is passed, a major amnesia sets in on these subjects. We thank the government for the improvement in the Rand Memorial Hospital, albeit it was instigated or proliferated by Hurricane Dorian. Hurricane Dorian brought us the much needed upgrade to the healthcare facility. While we are grateful for the government's initiatives, there are some concerns. One of the problems Grand Bahamians have is that prior to hurricane, we had a shortage of beds. Now, while we are grateful for the improvement, which is a far cry from what it was, you have given us less beds than what we had, which amount to a Band-Aid on a major wound. We have complained about the hospital being too small prior to your refurbishment. For $21 million, you would have thought that you would have at least given us more beds. For $21 million, you would have thought at least we would have gotten an oncology center. This hospital is in my constituency. The problem that I and Grand Bahamians are struggling with is this. It's in a flood zone. If a squall of rain comes tomorrow, $21 million worth of refurbishment could be flooded out. It has happened before without any hurricane. Now tell me, what are you going? Now you tell me that you're going upstairs. I hear you. I really do. So when the bottom is flooded, I guess you're going to use a jet ski or sailboat to bring the patients down from the upper floors. Furthermore, where the present hospital is situated, we have a parking dilemma. My recommendation is before you spend the next $19 million on going up, the hospital needs to be relocated altogether. Grand Bahamians would have been more appreciative if they had to sacrifice even longer if they knew they were getting a new hospital. Persons like myself still can't believe $21 million on what we've seen is still not acceptable. $21 million spent already and $19 million that you want to spend, which will be a total of $40 million. With that kind of money, we should have had a new hospital. By the way, which doesn't make sense to me. You spent $21 million to patch up and hold and clean. You was only spent $19 million to give us 3 new levels. Something just don't sound right there. Who's negotiating on behalf of the government besides the Prime Minister and the Minister of State? These deals that you have made on behalf of the people of Grand Bahama is atrocious, a national embarrassment. Hutchison Whampoa is laughing all the way to the bank. Hutchison Whampoa has made a laughing stock out of the people of Grand Bahama and a fool out of this government who declares themselves to be the people's time. Now you want to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present? Mr. Speaker, let me talk to Mama and Papa in the Family Island and my everyday people throughout this country. Let me break down this budget for you in layman's terms. The Honorable Hubert Minnis-led government has brought a fiscal budget for the year 2021-22. They're trying to convince you, the Bahamian people and myself, in this global COVID environment where the economy is trying to find its footing. This Hubert Minnis-led government wants to convince us Bahamians they're going to do more for us with less, despite an inflated national debt, less revenue, and more expenditure. In other words, East Grand Bahama, their outgo is more than the intake, which will lead to our further downfall. All right, Mama, Papa, Uncle Bulla, Auntie Tit, cuz, neighbor, tell me please, how are they going to do more with less when they didn't do as much with more? Now you want to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present? Mr. Speaker, now this is an election year and they want us to forget their ignorance, their arrogance, incompetence, offensiveness, disrespect, haughtiness, and self-aggrandization. Now that it's an election year, they want us to forget their arrogance, incompetence, offensiveness, disrespect, haughtiness, and self-aggrandizement, compliment of the leader of the opposition. They must now leave their ivory towers and their little circles that they've been locked in for 4.5 years. They must now look for Charlie Brown, not Abaco, as one have called me in this place. The people told me when they finish with him, they'll be doing the Charlie Brown. Bahamas, they're now coming to the peasants that they believe we are, while they strutted around for 4.5 years like prince and princesses. It's amazing what an election year will bring. All of a sudden, they found humility. They now know how to say once again, please, thank you, sir and ma'am. They now need something from you, but they gave you nothing in return when you gave them something the last time. And what they gave you, you're entitled to it. You're a Bahamian and a taxpayer. You made them. They didn't make you as they would have you to believe. As a matter of fact, they seem to have blocked you more than advanced you. They really believe, the government, that is, that we are a forgetful people and we are just plain stupid. Now you want to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present? They want you to believe that we will forget how they put former politicians in handcuffs and even one on crutches, while a citizen who testified in that case, and when he was charged, went to court without even an escort. They want you to forget how they squandered millions of dollars paying a foreign QC and lost every case. Money that could have been used to feed the hungry and clothe the naked. They want you to forget how they said they would repeal that and then came into office and instead of repealing it, increased it by 60%. Now you want to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present? They want you to forget how they accused the former government of corruption galore. And then, when coming into office, there was the Oban deal, the fraud signing, the misleading of the parliament, and the national embarrassment. They want you to forget how we were gray and blacklisted under their watch and how they never moved us from junk status. They want you to forget how they asked for salary increase in less than 10 months on the job and took 10 weeks vacation almost immediately after coming to office. They want you to forget how they went overseas and talk about our country being corrupt in another man's land, which we could never be as corrupt as that land was that he was in, speaking of. They want you to forget how they cried for another man's country as if they made him prime minister of the Bahamas. And when the Bahamas went through, we are yet to see that kind of remorse for the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Now you want to convince me and us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present. They want you to forget how, when they first came to office, they told the illegal Haitians they had to leave by the 31st of December of that year, and then went to their churches with a cabinet minister as their interpreter, basically saying, don't mind what I say. What? They want you to forget how they flew to Haiti and told the Haitian government they wanted Haitian bananas on their table by Christmas of that year. I guess Andros and Long Island bananas were not good enough. They want you to forget no 2 terms for prime ministers, no fixed election date, no independent boundary commission, and no anti-corruption commission as promised. Now they want to convince us it's about our future when they've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present. They want you to forget Bahamas. They want you to forget the nurses, the UB students, the doctors, the teachers, the taxi drivers, the Bahamian people demonstrating, the junior physicians' dismissal, and how they ignored the farmers. They want you to forget the sudden, oh yes, they want you to forget the sudden closure and the death of an individual as a result of that closure. They want you to forget PM's constant insult to the press and nonsensical response such as stew fish being more important than answering the Bahamian people, fishing from the moon, and talking about ABC and 1, 2, 3. They want you to forget how they promised unemployment would be down to 6%. And the fact is, it is probably now 40%. They want you to forget how you couldn't bury your dead with dignity, but the rich was afforded the opportunity to bury a dead dog, while the rest of us caught hell to bury our family or even attend a funeral. No, you want to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past, while selling us dreams and schemes in the future. Oh, I feel my help up in here. Oh, I feel my help. You're gonna know why people respond to McElvine. I'm gonna make it your business. So however long you got me to deal with, I ain't going nowhere. I gonna be right here. So you either call it now or call it later. you got me to deal with. They want you to forget the expense they put on us, the travel visa, and how they required the most expensive test for us to travel domestically rather than the adjunct test, which was less expensive, but it was okay for the tourists. They want you to forget how at one point they reduced social service assistance and stripped the poor of uniform allowance. They want you to forget how they took care of the elite, the well-connected and well-positioned, and gave concessions for airplanes and airplane parts and helicopters. They want you to forget how Dorian, they want you to forget how after Dorian, they held our dead for almost a year, placing our loved ones in unmarked graves, adding insult to injury. Now you want to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present? They want you to forget how 2 cabinet ministers were judicially condemned and how the chief magistrate, and this is the point, how the chief magistrate who did so was overlooked while her subordinates were elevated to justice. Yet they want us to believe they don't victimize. They want you to forget how they unceremoniously dismissed practically an entire BPL board, and the case is presently before the courts. You ain't got to say nothing, Carmichael, I'm moving on. They want you to forget.
Honorable member, the chair recognizes the honorable member for Carmichael on a point of order.
The member is in the middle of his ride. I am not going to take a prolonged time to interrupt him, but I will respond when I speak.
Thank you. But I don't see the reason to respond to nothing that I said. What I said is factual. They want you to forget how they arrested the young man for selling coconut on the side of the road and the young man that went to get water to bathe from the pump. They want you to forget how they had a limit on you when you got married. But for the politically connected, it was anything but rules and regulation. Now they want to convince us it's about our future when they've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present. They want you to forget how they insulted the former prime ministers of this country when they only wanted to bring their expertise to a natural disaster of which they were both knowledgeable and had experiential knowledge. They want you to forget how they insulted the man who single-handedly was responsible for him, Kalani, being in this place and being prime minister today. You insulted him. I don't think the former prime minister Ingram has many regrets, but if he do, I know it would be you. They want you to forget how they destroyed an entire political organization, abandoned its tenets, and then victimize those who remain true to the belief. They want you to forget how he has alienated the financial backers, ignored the founders, belittled the foot soldiers, and embarrassed the supporters. They want you to forget how they disrespected some of the members of parliament in this place. They have assassinated some of their own assassins, people who stood by them and for them. And they did so to those MPs without any remorse. That's cold. That's shady. That's regrettable. And now you want to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present. Mr. Speaker, I'm just about done. They can't take much more, but I got to talk. Mr. Speaker, they want us to forget that Pine Ridge voted against that, and they fired me for doing so. They paid me, Bahamas, $1,200 to hold that position, and then hired someone with a different color skin than me and paid them $5,000 plus a month. Believe you me, like most Bahamians, I did more and got paid less. They want us to forget that Pine Ridge voted. Oh, yes, ma. Yes. They wanted us to forget that I voted against putting the post office in a then sitting cabinet member's business, and I was against the purchase of the Alukaya. When they claimed it was sold or pretended it was sold when they had the big party and the champagne and caviar, I asked them to show us the check, only to come back later and proclaim it wasn't sold. And to this date, it's still not sold. They want you to forget how I asked for the Oban files that went missing, and they still can't seem to be found. Besides, while I'm at it, where's the lease agreement for the post office? How long we gonna pay them people? They don't want you to remember when the vote of no confidence was put forth in the prime minister. I abstained. And when the prime minister said he didn't hear my vote, which he didn't need to hear because the speaker did, I boldly repeated audaciously and with fervor and grace, I abstain. So you see, when you fear God, you don't fear man. They want you to forget how every time I speak in this place, the prime minister would get up and walk out. But when he's speaking, I sit attentively and listen to him. And even now, he's not here, but I can assure you, he's watching and listening. They want you to forget how every time I got up in this place, those sitting opposite would heckle me, joking and jesting, while I'm presenting the people's business and concern. They're not doing so much today now because they've learned. Just what they thought about me then and now is just what they think about you, the Bahamian people. They got us all for joke, but he who laughed last, laughed best. They want you, and this is important, they want you to forget how they let that young man in North Abaco go, declaring he's a ratified candidate. But there's been no election writ. This ain't helping you, North Abaco. While they have prospective candidates who are civil servants from St. Anne's, Fox Hill, and Pine Ridge campaigning in the government's car in those prospective constituencies. They want you to forget how they say, we are in a third wave. Listen, I told y'all before, Bahamas, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. They want you to forget how they say we're in a third wave, but still chose to campaign. They want you wearing masks and social distancing while they come to our doors and through our corners in numbers. They want you under lock and key while they bout the place room and bout. Now they want to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling dreams and schemes in the present. Mr. Speaker, thank you for your attention, sir. Mr. Speaker, exhilarated Bahamas, from crisis to opportunity, all these catchy phrases and PR exercises are simply not resonating with the Bahamian people. Your colorful pamphlet, your quarterly fiscal reports, and the fact that you brought legislation to this place for fiscal responsibility does not mean you're fiscally responsible. You borrowed more money than any successive government. You've doubled the national debt. You're yet to explain how you're going to pay off these loans, and you seem to have lost control of your debt management. Now, they now label Kalani, Centerville, through you, Mr. Speaker, the Donald Trump of the region. What folks don't know is that for Kalani, President Trump would be considered one of his political heroes, big fan. You have mimicked the style of governance, the behavior, and speeches. I will assure you, the Bahamian people are about to trump you. Now you want to convince us about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present? Mr. Speaker, I'm just about done. I want to thank the people of Pine Ridge and Grand Bahama. They have been the wind beneath my wings. They have given me the courage to speak up and speak out. They encourage me daily, and they use me, and they assured me, because I have their back, they have mine. Surprisingly, some of these people wear red, yellow, green, and some no colors at all. If the people who tell me what they tell me do what they say they'll do, I expect to be back in this place, speaking on behalf of the good and gracious people of Pine Ridge and by extension Grand Bahama. I want to say a special thanks to my wife, Tracy Monique. She is truly a woman after my own heart. She's special, she's kind, she's gracious, she treats me like a king, and she definitely is my queen. Thank you for your love, support, and assistance. I want to give special mention to my political assistant, Tabitha Joffa. She makes representing the people of Pine Ridge easy. I have you to rely on. You have given me messages, you've returned calls on my behalf, and you've even made calls on my behalf. You've helped me to make it happen in Pine Ridge. Again, Tabitha, thank you. For most of you who I've served with in this place, I'm sorry you will not advance with some of us. I want you to know, for me, it's not personal. It's not personal. I hope you didn't take it, and I hope you didn't take it personal. For me, it was and is about the Bahamian people. When this group called the F&M returns to this place after next general election, they will be able to fit in the back of a limousine. Or, if you determine, you could come back in the little Japanese buggy. I guarantee you, you will all fit. I can't promise you who will be the next government, because I believe God is up to something. And I pray that whatever he's up to, I'm a part of it. God, whatever you're doing in this season, don't do it without me. But I can assure you who will be the government, but I can assure you, you won't. So these words to you and for you, these words are my words to you and for you. You can rely on them and replay them in your head after the next general election when some of us are sworn back in. For those of you whom the chief made one and done, and to others of you whom the Bahamian people will make one and done, I say to you, may the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord watch between you and I while we are absent one from another. May the peace of God go with you. Now you want to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present? Mr. Speaker, thank you for this opportunity to articulate and orate on behalf of the good and gracious people of Pine Ridge. May God bless the people of Pine Ridge, their endeavors, and the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Now, you want to convince us it's about our future when you've ignored us in the past while selling us dreams and schemes in the present. Mr. Speaker, Pine Ridge rests.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. As many? The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Garden Hills.
I did not want to interrupt the distinguished member from Pine Ridge because he was in full stride and he was delivering his message. And as a good preacher, I don't get into his sermon. But I just want to correct him on two issues that he raised. One is that the Ministry of Public Service laid off 2,500 public officers or civil servants when we came to office. That I can assure you that that is certainly only PLP propaganda. When I make my presentation, I will tell you. I will tell you what I will tell you what the facts are, and explain to the Bahamian people that we didn't lay off one person as long as I was the Minister of the Public Service. Secondly, not one.
Let him finish.
Secondly, Mr. Speaker, the member spoke to public officers campaigning. He knows the rules, I assume, and the rule is so that if he does not know, I'll just tell him what the rule is. While the general orders say you ought not to campaign, I acknowledge, and you know, thousands of Bahamians campaign. But just a minute. Let me just finish. Let me just finish. Yes. The QC on that side knows, and I'm not a lawyer, but the QC on that side knows one thing: that the Ministry of Public Service, by law, can only cause someone to be retired if they are ratified and announced by a political party. That is why, as a PLP did in the past.
Honorable member,
let me just say, as the PLP knows that practice in the past, and the FNM has practiced in the past, when you have public officers who wish to run for your party, you just don't announce them. You don't ratify them. Once they are ratified, I can assure you that the Ministry of Public Service will get them a letter on that day, as we have done the persons who have been ratified and announced for public officers today. Every single one.
Thank you. Chair recognizes the honorable member for Angleston.
Speaker, I want to thank the member for Pine Ridge for raising this issue, because this is one of concern to me. I heard the minister's explanation, but can he advise, if that is the case, why we know that currently you have a director of labor who's campaigning in political colors, missing in action, I'm told, from his post, and obviously biased in his presentation. But heads of department, as in the post office at Sandilands, are telling subordinate junior staff as an act of intimidation that they cannot march, they cannot campaign. So you tell me, member for Garden Hills, how can you, may I finish? How can you rationalize senior officers who are candidates, and you know they're candidates, campaigning out there, but telling junior Bahamians, young Bahamians or subordinate Bahamians, that they will lose their jobs if they dare go out in political colors, particularly if it's the wrong color?
You wrote a letter to them.
No, you know what I'm saying? It's not FA. I have it's circulated.
Chair recognizes the honorable member for Garden Hill. Honorable members, the member for Garden Hill, have the floor.
Mr. Speaker, I really like the enthusiasm and I honor and respect the member of Parliament for Garden Hills. But I stated for Angleston, sorry. Well, you know, she got a part of Garden Hills too, so she
I don't like that.
I don't no. My position is no.
Honorable members, the member for Garden Hills, honorable member for Garden Hills.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I did say that the rules in the public service, they're very clear. The rules say if you're ratified by a political party and you are announced. Now, secondly, Mr. Speaker, hundreds let me say, scores of public officers campaign all the time for both sides. For both sides. I could show you on my phone photographs for individuals who work for the National Insurance Board and who works, just a minute please, and who works in the public service. And I've said to them very simple. It's happening on both sides. The rules are very clear. The rule is for a candidate. The rule is for a candidate as soon as you're announced. The very day you are announced. And once a political party goes out and say, I am announcing candidate A to run in this constituency, the very next day, that public officer gets a letter from the Ministry of Public Service. And there's absolutely no curry favor. We've done it already in this election. We've done it in this election. And my colleague from, just a minute, colleague, my colleague from North Andros knows.
Honorable member for Garden Hills. I know. Honorable member for North Andros and the Berry Islands.
My call, Mr. Speaker, I think my colleague from North Andros is upset because like public officers who campaigned today, he was given his notice the same day. He lost salary and he lost the monies, but those are the rules of the game. The rule is, as long as your party declares you to run, that's it. That's the rules.
So, thank you, honorable member. Honorable members, I think we've heard enough with respect to general orders and as many. Honorable member for Pine Ridge.
Thank you. Ms. Garden Hills, I hear you. And, I'm not going to prolong this any much, but I will say this. This is a part of the problem now. You said it has to be ratified. People are not blind. They're not deaf. They're not dumb. They can see. They see what's going on and they hear what you said. And what you're saying is not giving any more credibility to what's happening.
Honorable members.
Mr. Speaker, just let me say this. Every single political party, I say this as a public officer. I know what happened to me in 2007. I say this about every single political party knows. Every single political party knows the strategy that is used. If you have a public officer who wishes to run for public office, that name is held back for as long as possible. The result is most public officers who run for political party, they only get about a month to campaign because they campaign, and I'm not saying that they are right to do it, but until you are named.
Honorable member for Garden.
That's just the rules.
Thank you. As many. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Tall Pines. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Central Grand Bahama.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, the member for Central Grand Bahama has the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I did not want to interrupt the good member from Pine Ridge while he stood on the floor erect in his own words. But I want to, operating erect. I want to correct the statement that he made. I was the Minister of State for Disaster Preparedness Management and Reconstruction. And he made a statement that we buried bodies in Abaco in unmarked grave. That is highly incorrect. I lost family members and friends, and I know that the coroner's office, the police department, and the DRA painstakingly Exactly. They painstakingly identify bodies. They tag the bodies. Each grave is tagged with a DNA sample. So at the end of the day, when those samples are identified, individual graves can be uncovered for those bodies to be identified. So to say that they were buried in unmarked grave is totally incorrect.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Pine Ridge. Honorable Member,
Correct.
all the member said as the former minister was that he has evidence that the graves were identified and marked. So by DNA samples. So that justifies his objection to your statement that they were unmarked, in my estimation. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Tall Pines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I'm no pastor. Speaker, I'm an attorney by profession. Mr. Speaker, I always saw this honorable house as a house of business and not a house of rhymes and riddles. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to speak frankly, I'm going to speak clearly, and I'm going to make sure the Bahamian people go to bed tonight, hearing facts and hearing the truth, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't rhyme. I just speak the pure truth. Unadulterated truth, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, when members stand up in this house, and they throw rocks, Mr. Speaker, they throw rocks and they hope that it lands somewhere and it hurts somebody. And they help somebody who's listening on the airwaves and who's watching the TV. Take those rhymes and riddles, hook, line, and sinker. Then I'm going to tell any member who believes that. Not when this member for Toa Pines and when these members of this honorable house who are F&Ms, who are strong Bahamians, and who could see change that has happened since this F&M government took office. We will not stand by and allow that to happen, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't talk rhymes and riddles, Mr. Speaker. I talk facts, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you want to feel the money, Mr. Speaker, I challenge any member of parliament, go in your constituency, touch Mama Han, and ask her where she get that, how she get that social service check. If you want to feel it, Mr. Speaker, if you want to see it, Mr. Speaker, walk on the University of the Bahamas campus and ask that student from Exuma, ask that student from Eleuthera, how things going now. Now you're getting a little $500 stipend at the end of every month from the government of the Bahamas. If you want to feel it, if you want to see it, Mr. Speaker, walk the streets of the Bahamas. Walk the streets of the Bahamas, Mr. Speaker, and ask that lady who has 4 and 5 children, couldn't afford any groceries for them, but had to go to social services, Mr. Speaker, and took advantage of what this F&M government has done in terms of our social outreach. If you want to see, Mr. Speaker, if you want to feel it, Mr. Speaker, just walk on Miami Street, walk in Bean and Grand style, and talk to them. Shake their hands if you want to feel it. Shake their hands. And ask them, Mr. Speaker, how this F&M government has stepped up to the plate. How this F&M government has taken their plight serious. How this F&M government have responded, notwithstanding all of the challenges that we've had in the last 2 years. You ask them if you want to feel it. You ask them if you want to see it, Mr. Speaker. I don't rhyme. I don't riddle. I talk sense, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want every Bahamian to hear this tonight before we end this debate. Before we end this debate, go to bed knowing that your F&M government, we still think and we still fight because we know it's still all about you, Mr. Speaker. Yes. We still fight. We still stand in this honorable house and present a budget that we know will be responsive to your needs. We still stand. We still fight today, Mr. Speaker. Not because we said it was the people's time. Mr. Speaker, we stand and we fight in this house because we know it's the people's time, Mr. Speaker. That's why, Mr. Speaker, that's why $25.9 million was given in support of health care in this country. Speaker, that's why $118 million was given in assistance to unemployed persons, Mr. Speaker. This ain't no rhyme and riddle, that's facts. Mr. Speaker, that's why $32.8 million was given out in social assistance, Mr. Speaker. That's why $44.4 million was given in tax credits so that companies could hire and assist families, employees. Speaker, that's why $43.3 million was given out for small businesses. This ain't no time to be rhyming and riddling. This time to be talking facts. This time for you to go to bed, Tall Pines. This is time for you to go to bed, Marco City. This is time for you to go to bed in Lutra, Andres, in Lucha, Freeport, the whole Bahamas. To know the facts. Know the facts. Do not listen to the rhymes. Do not listen to the rhythms. Listen, feel, touch the facts. Mr. Speaker, today I stand before you humbly as a servant for Tall Pines. And I don't know what and who certain members was talking about, Mr. Speaker. But I can tell you something. Based on the record of this member of parliament, based on the record of this government of whom I'll be a team player with, I'm confident that we will be, Tall Pines will be in the winning column for the free national movement, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, I stand here humbly saying to those persons who put their faith in me, those persons who put their faith in the free national movement government in 2017, we thank you for that faith.
Let's do it again.
We thank you for the trust you put in me, the trust you put in Kalani, the trust you put in this government, the trust you put in every single member of parliament who bears the torch. Because we have not only responded to your needs, but we've been very, very responsible in those responses. Unprecedented responsibility, Mr. Speaker. And so I say to them, I thank you. I thank you, Tall Pines, for what we continue to do and work together. I thank my team, Mr. Speaker, who has been supporting me over the years as we walk the streets, as we hear the needs and the concerns of those people that needed our help. That's why, Mr. Speaker, I don't stand in here and call myself an F&M and then bat for a team that kept so many Bahamians down. I don't stand in here, Mr. Speaker, and call myself an F&M and bat for a team that has failed this country on so many occasions, Mr. Speaker. When I stand in here and I call myself a Free National Movement member, I bat for the team that I know have been responsive to the Bahamian people. And that team is the F&M, Mr. Speaker.
He's right. He's absolutely right.
Mr. Speaker.
And y'all are not the F&M.
As I walk the streets of Tall Pines, Mr. Speaker.
Y'all are something else. Y'all ain't.
As I walk the streets of Tall Pines, Mr. Speaker, I say to them, be focused. Think about it. Think for a second. Which party, which government responded to your needs when your homes were under the threat of fire? What or which government responded to your needs when you were unemployed and you didn't have enough contributions under normal circumstances and NIB to get assistance? Think about it. Which party responded to your needs and ensuring that your children were still able to get a good education when the country was unfortunately locked down to protect us from COVID? Which party did that? Which group of individuals saw the necessity for a response that was not only humane, but a response that was necessary at this time? So, Mr. Speaker, you could listen to the noise in the market. People could take political advantage of the fact that persons may be upset about being locked down. People could take advantage of the fact that hotels have had to close their doors for several months, when they know, in fact, hotels all around the world being closed for several months, when they know other countries' streets are being closed down, when they know other countries' hospitals have been challenged. But yet, in our own country, we bring down our own leaders who are responding in a necessary way for political brownie points. Mr. Speaker, I am an F&M. I am a Bahamian, first and foremost. and I fight for the members of Tall Pines. I fight for the members of this great Commonwealth. And I stand by this government who have responded and responded responsibly, who have responded and responded in a humane manner, and have not politicized this COVID-19 pandemic, who have not politicized Hurricane Dorian, who have not politicized any opportunity when we see a member of parliament step down from the cabinet, who have not politicized any opportunity that they had or they have to make the government look bad when they know the facts. It is sad, Mr. Speaker, when members in this House who know better, and I know they know better, Mr. Speaker. You know they know better. Yet, let me try and bring down a government. Let me try and put seeds in the minds of our communities that this government is not doing the right thing. And Mr. Speaker, if you want to see for yourself, I speak to my constituents. If you want to see for yourself, just go. Go on the government website. We've made it very simple. We've done it again. We've made it very simple. You don't need this big, thick book that they give us. We've made it very simple. Simplified it for you. Go on the government website and look at the things that this government has done. Look for yourselves, and you make that determination, Mr. Speaker. And so for all of those persons that have gone before us, Mr. Speaker, who sat in this honorable House, I think we do them an injustice. Persons like Tennyson Wells, Honorable Tennyson Wells, whose wife, I send my condolences to his family, just died, Mr. Speaker. Our legal colleague, Stephanie Wells. People like Tennyson Wells, people like Honorable Charles Carter. We don't stand in this House, Mr. Speaker, we cannot stand not being cognizant of the history and the men and women who have served and who expect better of us, who expect for us to come in this House, Mr. Speaker, and give the Bahamian people the true numbers, to give the Bahamian people the true works of the government, to give the Bahamian people hope. Somebody spoke about it yesterday, to give the Bahamian, I think it was Golden Gates, to give the Bahamian people hope for a better future. And I would submit to them, Mr. Speaker, you go and you look for yourself in this budget, in the simplified version of this budget. This plan for growth, accelerated Bahamas Recovery Plan 2021-2022. You would see for yourself that this free national government, free national movement government, is truly committed to you. It's truly committed to your children. It's truly committed to your island. It's truly committed to this Commonwealth, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, I stand here not to preach. I stand here to speak truth. I stand here to challenge every member of every constituent of Tall Pines to read for yourself. I stand here today, Mr. Speaker, to challenge every member of parliament and every cabinet minister and every senator to go out there and to not politicize, but speak truth. Challenge your constituents to read for themselves. Challenge your constituents. Challenge your constituents to see how best that they could take advantage of the opportunities that this free national movement government is putting before them. Challenge them, Mr. Speaker, to go out there and find out what the member for Marco City is doing in agriculture and fisheries as we try to transform this country. We talk about our dependency on tourism, and we see and we live it today, the effects of that great dependency. The member for Marco City and the minister responsible for agriculture and marine resources, he has set the challenge to us. He has worked so hard with his team, North Andros and the Berry Islands, to make sure that we pivot this country in a direction where we will be less reliant on tourism. Why don't we instead, Mr. Speaker, go and speak to our young people in our communities and tell them that this budget, this 2021-2022 budget has provisions for them to take advantage of opportunities in that ministry? Why don't we challenge them, Mr. Speaker, instead of coming in this House and bashing the leadership of this government? Why don't we challenge them instead to make sure, go to the University of the Bahamas, go to BTVI and take advantage of these opportunities? Why don't we instead, Mr. Speaker, Why don't we instead challenge them to think about businesses, think about opportunities, and go and speak to the member for Kalani and the senator, the minister of state, and to take advantage, Mr. Speaker, of the millions and millions of dollars that this government continues to make available for them to start their businesses. Why don't we do that instead, Mr. Speaker? Why do we come in this house instead and grandstand, rhyme and riddle, when there's so much opportunities for Bahamians out there? In the time we have here, Mr. Speaker, whether it be short or whether it be long, take these opportunities, my colleagues. Then instead, Mr. Speaker, challenge your constituents, challenge all Bahamians to take advantage of what this government has provided for us. After all, Mr. Speaker, it is their money. It is their money. And so, Mr. Speaker, I kind of got off my speech, Mr. Speaker, but I want to, again, give my condolences to the family of the Wells, Ms. Stephanie Wells, Mr. Speaker. Stephanie Wells is a pioneer in the legal profession. I see my colleague from Seabreeze shaking her head. I know the member for Golden Gate, Marathon, North Abaco, and the list goes on. The good QC from Cat Island, Rumkey, that's in Salvador. Mr. Speaker, she is a pioneer, a woman that I think all young women, young ladies could look up to. And I thank you for the time, Mr. Speaker, that so many times that, and she was a specialist, I would say, in family law. And for those of us who practice in family law, you could be assured that if you call Ms. Wells, she would respond. And she would give you good, sound advice. And so I want to say to all of her children and her family, our condolences from Tall Pines, and I'm sure I speak for every member of parliament in here, whether it be PLP or FNM, Mr. Speaker, or independent, Mr. Speaker, or those who ain't sure if they PLP or FNM, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to give condolences, Mr. Speaker, to Honorable Father Turnquest, who served his country in a grand way. Mr. Speaker, I also a person that if I wasn't a politician, then I think I would have been a priest because, I decided to become a politician, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, but Father Turnquest have done so much, not only for the Anglican Diocese, but for the entire Bahamas. And he's going to be greatly missed. Mr. Speaker, there's Macaroni. We know him as Macaroni. Peter Gilgot, his family, Mr. Speaker, a good Saxon superstar. He's going to be sorely missed. I always remember, Mr. Speaker, as me and my twin brother, as we walked from COB to my godmother's house on Wolf Road, we always stopped to the Peter's office right next to Pastor Hancho's establishment there where he feeds and helps the poor. And he would always talk to us about how we could do so much better in this country from a financial perspective, because he was a leader in accountancy and economics, and he always gave encouraging words, Mr. Speaker. And so I want to say to all of those persons to speak and all of the faithful that we pray for them and their families. Speaker, I want to also take this opportunity because, as I mentioned, there's so much good going on in this country. I think as we get so bogged down in the rhetoric of trying to bash ourselves, and we forget about those persons on the front line. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank, on behalf of the people of Tall Pines and the Bahamas, all the doctors and nurses and police officers, and social care workers, and persons who work in the food stores, and persons who work, our teachers and all our essential workers, for the work that they have been doing over the years, particularly over the last year with the COVID-19. I want them to know that we continue to pray for them. And Mr. Speaker, I'm always reminded that this work, and you have to really respect them, because this has been like a 2 years worth of constant work for them. After Hurricane Dorian, now into COVID, and they've still been championing our healthcare, championing our educational system, championing our streets as police officers and defense laws officers, and officers in various other law enforcement agencies. But Mr. Speaker, I stand here to tell them, as they serve us, that we're going to continue our fight in this honorable house to make sure that their well-being and their safety is always priority. Speaker, we're going to continue to ensure that these workers, nurses, doctors, police officers, that they're taken care of, Mr. Speaker. And so I challenge this government to ensure that whatever provisions are on this budget, accommodate them, that we not forget them. Mr. Speaker, if you would permit, I want to speak briefly about the work that we've been doing in Torrey Pines. Because I challenged my colleagues a few minutes ago to go out there in the streets, to go out there and challenge their constituents. But I want to say that I have had the privilege, Mr. Speaker, to serve a great community, a great constituency. Mr. Speaker, when I ran 2017, some of my friends told me that, why did I choose that constituency? They were easier persons to run against. There were easier places to go. I told them, Mr. Speaker, every single Bahamian deserves great representation. Every single Bahamian deserves their voices and their interests to be spoke of and met through this honorable house. And I asked those people, Mr. Speaker, to give me that opportunity. And they gave me that opportunity against the odds. Speaker, I thank them very much. And I want to congratulate, Speaker, the Jubilee Gardens Neighborhood Association, the Fire Trail Crime Watch Association. I want to thank the Stable and Gardens Association, the Glennon's Close Association, the High Tree Estate Association. Because one of the promises I made, Mr. Speaker, is that when I become their member of parliament, I want to work with them to make sure that their concerns are met. And no better way to serve your community than to serve under the leadership and direction of the persons within their own small communities. I prayed, Mr. Speaker, and the member for Southern Shores would remember as we traveled the Bahamas with the now Prime Minister, and we spoke about the necessity for local government. I prayed, and I was one of those advocates, hoping that we would have local government by now in New Providence. And I think that that's something that this government will succeed in. We've had, Mr. Speaker, challenges that may have caused us not to fulfill that particular mandate, but I'm confident, Mr. Speaker. I hope the member for East Grand Bahama isn't leaving, but if he is, let me say this before he leaves, because later on in his speech, in my speech, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to also thank him as the member of parliament for East Grand Bahama for his service. Because the reason, Mr. Speaker, we're at the point financially in this country is simply because it was sweeter with Peter, Mr. Speaker. Where it was sweeter with Peter. I said that during the outside of this house, Mr. Speaker. It was sweeter with Peter because the member for East Grand Bahama understood the necessity for us to turn this economy around, but do it in a fiscally responsible way. And he served not only his people in East Grand Bahama, but he has served this entire Bahamas. And I want him to know that notwithstanding the fact that he would not be here in this house in the next run with me, or if he decides to come back, Mr. Speaker, that I want him to know that the work that he has done, and I know the work, whether or not he's here or not, Mr. Speaker, I know the member for East Grand Bahama, I know that he would continue to help the Bahamas. And I want to thank him before he leaves, Mr. Speaker. I want to let him know that the people of Torrey Pines, we respect you, we love you, and we will always have your back. Member for East Grand Bahama. If only we had a deputy prime minister like him last time around, Mr. Speaker, things would have been better. But I love my member for Cat Island and Ramkins and Salvador. We share pew together in church sometimes. I love him I love him, Mr. Speaker, but I do think that that the member for East Grand Bahama outshined him as a deputy prime minister. And I say that respectfully. He's a good man. He's a good man. But yeah, that's true. You know, I heard that tonight. I heard his answer with that, because a lot of times he seems to always say that he didn't know what was going on sometimes. But I want Cat Island to know that there is money in this budget for Cat Island. That over the last 2 years we have laid all kind of pipe in Cat Island. That we have done so many things for Cat Island, Ramkins, and Salvador. And notwithstanding the fact that we will be winning the next election, notwithstanding the fact that we have a candidate in Cat Island who I will be batting for in Cat Island, that we will take care of Cat Island. And Cat Island will be a better place because of an F&M representation in Cat Island, Ramkins, and Salvador. Mr. Speaker, in Tall Pines, these community associations have done well. Speaker, for example, I spoke about Jubilee Gardens. Mr. Speaker, we've cleaned up and redeveloped the park in Jubilee Gardens. We have renovated a long abandoned bathroom and kitchen facility there. We regularly clean a pool that was built by, I don't know which government did it, Mr. Speaker, but we still have to work on that. We've erected a new street community sign in that constituency. I spoke about the fact that we erected a light there that was stolen a few weeks ago. We've done several tractor cleanups in the properties, the area that used to be between the homes and the landfill. Speaker, we assisted after the tornado passed through Jubilee Gardens. We assisted some of the homes that were affected. And Doris Johnson's estate, Mr. Speaker, we constructed a new park in Ophelia Gardens, Mr. Speaker. We carry on regular cleanups of the streets, and we renovated the park, and we plan to redevelop that park, Mr. Speaker. In Straughns Hill, we have built a new park in Straughns Hill. In Hunts Close, we've erected the new community sign. Campbell Estates, Hunts Close, a new community sign. High Tree Estates, Mr. Speaker, we've renovated the community park. We put in place proper street lights. We've removed derelict vehicles, not only there, but throughout the constituency. There was an eyesore building there, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the member for Carmichael and the Minister for Works. It was on that corner that they wanted to move for years, but the government purchased. That was an eyesore, and there was a harboring potential criminals and animals that they didn't want in their communities. We did that, Mr. Speaker. We in our community center, that was promised. We have a job readiness center there, Mr. Speaker, a computer lab there. Not only because of COVID, we've reduced the attendance there, but we still assist persons there on a daily basis. Persons who need assistance with their resumes. Persons who just want to come print out their resumes. Persons, we have a job bank there, Mr. Speaker, where we get their resumes and we send it out. We assist our senior citizens on a very regular basis. We have done meet and greets, Mr. Speaker, in several communities. We have cleanup programs where we put large bins in various communities throughout Tall Pines. We've had several town hall meetings carrying out the mandate of the member for Kalani, the Prime Minister. We've had legal aid clinics where our constituents could have spoke to lawyers about family law matters, particularly about employment matters when this COVID-19 pandemic started. We visited our schools. We have no schools, the government schools in Tall Pines, but we still have adopted Anatole Rogers, Garvin Times Primary School, and we've assisted those schools. Speaker, we have a scholarship programs where a few months ago, we gave 15 scholarships to Tall Pines residents for small business development boot camp. And we continue to assist students as they travel to overseas campuses and even here. Speaker, we've launched, Mr. Speaker, I'm running on my record, Mr. Speaker. I'm running on my record. And so, the persons who get kicked out of other islands want to come into Tall Pines. I can't understand this, Mr. Speaker. I just want to pivot here. A member of the government, a minister for Grand Bahama, 5 seats. Think about this, Tall Pines. There's a camera here. 5 seats in Grand Bahama. They tell me the fella, I stand to be corrected. He was the minister for Grand Bahama. My good friend here, Mark, my good friend here, Pine Ridge. I heard what he said on the campaign trail when he was truly battling for us. Mr. Speaker, the former minister, I'm told, is coming into Tall Pines for Grand Bahama. Grand Bahama has 5 seats, one of which he served before. But the man cannot, I'm told, I stand to be corrected, cannot even go in Grand Bahama and run in one of those 5 seats. And y'all want to put him in Tall Pines? Let me finish what we've been doing in Tall Pines, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am going to run on my records. Mr. Speaker, we continue our social outreach program. We have fed hundreds and hundreds of persons working with churches. Food coupons, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I could go on and go on, but Mr. Speaker, you have to excuse me, but this is the crown. This is the crown, Mr. Speaker. This is the jewel in the crown. And I want to thank the member for Marathon. I want to thank the member for Marathon. I want to thank the member for Kalani for not forgetting the constituency of Tall Pines. I want to thank them, Mr. Speaker, because when I walk the streets of Tall Pines, I ask them, what is it that you want dealt with right away? What is your most important concern? And Mr. Speaker, I would tell you 9 out of 10 persons said, I'm just saying, Mr. Speaker, they said, Mr. Saunders, if you could deal with that dump, you straight. They said, Mr. Speaker, they said, if you could deal, because it being around successive government after government, they said, Mr. Saunders, if you could keep your government's feet to the fire and make sure that they do not forget that promise, you straight. Mr. Speaker, they said, if they could help us ensure that these banks and these financial institutions who are telling us that they wouldn't lend us money to renovate our homes, that we cannot put our homes on the market because nobody wants to live in these communities. Because, Mr. Speaker, because their children and themselves, they can't enjoy their backyards. Because the businesses in the community, time after time, when fires was being lit over and over again, or started on the landfill, then dumped, schools were being closed, businesses were being affected. The health of my people, Mr. Speaker. The health of my people, Mr. Speaker. And they said, Mr. Saunders, if you could deliver on this promise, you straight. I want to say to the member for Maradona as he leaves or he takes a seat in front, thank you very much, because this F&M government has delivered for Tall Pines. Mr. Speaker, it's with pride, Mr. Speaker, when I knock on the doors and I walk around, when people say, Mr. Saunders, thank you very much. I was in Victoria Gardens this Saturday, Mr. Speaker, and as I looked behind those homes, and what used to be smoke, what used to be piles and piles of garbage is now greenery. No more wild dogs, no more. It's hard to speak of, Mr. Speaker. And so this is a 2-year anniversary. I want to say to this government, thank you very much. We could take that, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, if the people of Tall Pines put their faith in Don Saunders and they put their faith in Kalani and the Free National Movement and we delivered, I can guarantee you that we're going to deliver on greater things for Tall Pines, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to say to those persons, particularly Director Melanie McKinsey, particularly those persons in the Ministry of the Environment who have been working with us in terms of moving derelict vehicles, who's been working with us in terms of getting our communities in order, I say thank you. I want to say to those persons in Victoria Gardens, particularly who have been complaining about that company, that business that's on the corner, that's being addressed through legal means, and we are addressing that problem for you. And I can guarantee you that we're going to have that addressed for you, as I guaranteed you that we would fix the landfill. Continue to put your faith in me. Continue to put your faith in the F&M. We will continue to deliver for you to Tall Pines. Mr. Speaker, I want to pivot now, Mr. Speaker, into this budget. I want to say this, that over and over again, we talk about spending. We talk about what governments have done in the past in terms of downgrades. We speak over and over again of whether or not the government is being responsible for the people's money. But I want to say to every single Bahamian out there, as I started the speech, Mr. Speaker, if you don't believe me, you look for yourself, you read for yourself. Before Dorian, Mr. Speaker, this country was making historical moves when it comes to its fiscal responsibility. We were reaching levels that was unprecedented in terms of how we manage the country's affairs. Speaker, we were doing what persons in our streets, in our churches, in their businesses, what they expected of us. We were being responsible. And in 2018, when we passed the fiscal responsibility bill, we showed the Bahamian people, not by talks, Mr. Speaker, we showed the Bahamian people that we were serious about managing their being responsible with their funds and managing the economy of this country. We showed them, Mr. Speaker, that we were serious about ensuring that we do not go down that dark hole that the PLP government was taking us through prior to 2017. We showed them, Mr. Speaker, that we wanted to put in place a statute, a law, a bill, an act that would hold every successive government responsible. So we wasn't putting in something that we just talking, Mr. Speaker. We wanted to hold their feet to the fire, every government, this government, the governments of the future, and make sure that they were disciplined. They were disciplined. And that 2018 fiscal responsibility bill, Mr. Speaker, ensured that. And so the Minister West then administration did this country a good deed. And so, Mr. Speaker, to use the words of the former Minister of Finance, who said that it is looking good, it is a forward-looking bill intended to reshape the culture of public accountability. This is a built-in safeguard to ensure continuity, sustainability, and commitment to fiscal discipline. And that is exactly what we've done last year, Mr. Speaker. And based on the numbers in this budget, we could say comfortably, without doubt, that we are doing the same thing in this 2001-2002 budget, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we take the people's money seriously. And I want to say, particularly, Mr. Speaker, to the minister responsible for disaster preparedness, management, and reconstruction. That is the member for West End and Bimini. That while Grand Bahama, even New Providence, look to your leadership, we want you to know, and your team to know, as the Disaster Reconstruction Authority, that we expect that every cent, that every dime that is afforded for you and your ministry reach the people of Abaco, reach the people of Grand Bahama. Because that's our way in New Providence. That's our way in the Exumas. That's our way in the Richie Lucras. To give back to Grand Bahama. That's our way to give back to Abaco, North Abaco. That's our way to say that we are your brother. We are your sister. And this FNM government has made provisions and have given you that responsibility, Madam West End and Bimini, to ensure that our brothers and sisters in those particular islands are taken care of. And Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to know that this government has not turned its back on those islands. And so I stand with the member for West End and West Grand Bahama and Bimini, and I congratulate the Honorable Kay Forbes Smith and her team at the authority for the work they continue to do. And I encourage them to stand strong. My constituents of Tall Pines, we're fighting for you. We're praying for you. Mr. Speaker, the member for Exumas spoke of this budget as a wishful budget, as a fairy tale budget. I beg to differ. This budget is a budget for the people. This budget, Mr. Speaker, is a budget that responds to the needs of the people. Mr. Speaker, and so while last year's budget spoke to building our country and getting us out of that loop, this particular budget speaks enhancing us, propelling us even more forward. And so, Mr. Speaker, the choice hasn't changed. This choice still is, and this goes to some of my colleagues here who bash this government and who speak down to this budget. The choice still is this: to reduce spending, cut education, cut health, cut social services, or instead, increase investment in people. Increase investment in people. And this budget does that, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to encourage this cabinet as we plant seeds for hope, as we plant seeds for prosperity for Bahamians, not only in Tall Pines, but throughout the Family Islands, throughout the Bahamas, that we stand strong for them. This accelerated Bahamas recovery plan, I think, Mr. Speaker, Tall Pines believe in. We believe that this will bring about change that's necessary for our country to continue to move forward. This will bring about the change that we need in our tourism market. This is to bring about the change that we need with Marco City in our agriculture and fisheries. This is to bring about the change that we need in Yamakra and financial services. This will bring about the change we need, Mr. Speaker, in our educational system. This will bring about the change, the desperate change we need in our healthcare system, Elizabeth and Bamboo Town. And so, Mr. Speaker, I believe that this accelerated plan, recovery plan, as we spend millions of dollars, continue to spend millions of dollars on social services, will respond and respond greatly. I wish to reiterate, Mr. Speaker, that this budget has 5 priorities, and those priorities were laid out by the Prime Minister. Public health, to strengthen public health infrastructure. We talked about, I think the member for Pine Ridge, rightfully concerned about his island, rightfully concerned about Pine Ridge, spoke about what was going on at the Rand Memorial Hospital. But I want to assure Pine Ridge that your F&M government is taking healthcare to the levels that has never been taken to in the history of the Bahamas. I want to assure the member for Cat Island, Rumkins, and Salvador that the second arm of one of the arms of social support, this will continue to provide food assistance to the vulnerable and give cash support to workers, whether or not they live in Angleston, whether or not they live in Beantown, but throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I want to assure Angleston that the third arm, the domestic economy, help small businesses stay afloat and give them tax breaks and help these small businesses survive and continue to employ young and old Bahamians. I want to say to you, Pine Ridge, that the fourth existing employment, I don't mean to pillar you in that PLP group, but I just gonna put you in there because you spoke to the budget. Existing employment, providing support to maintain public and private sector employment. We talk about the fact that we're going to give tax breaks to companies so that they can hire. And I think that's so progressive. Instead of some of these government ministries, Mr. Speaker, and I say this respectfully, and this is successive government, there's so many, I can just say this. There's a lot of people in these ministries that I would say don't need to be there. So why not we use this opportunity, as this government is doing, to put them in private businesses? Let them work in private industries that maybe which they wanna, where they wanna work. Let them, no, Angleston, you kept to think out the box sometimes. You just can't be going on the same road the same old day and getting the same results. This government is thinking out the box. We're helping businesses stay afloat. Mr. Speaker, we're helping businesses stay afloat, Speaker. And fifthly, Mr. Speaker, government reform, accelerating reform to meet the needs of a modern Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, I am confident. I'm confident, Mr. Speaker, that this F&M government through this budget takes the Bahamian people serious. I'm confident, Mr. Speaker, that notwithstanding those twin catastrophes of Dorian and now COVID, that this government is still keeping the ship afloat, our economy, our Bahamian economy, that this government is still taking seriously our fiscal responsibility, that this government is still taking serious its mandate to feed, to house, to educate, and to look after every single Bahamian, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me say this. As the Prime Minister indicated, that this F&M government in this plan, he says as of the end of March 2021, as of March, $25.9 million, Mr. Speaker. 25, and they ask, where's the heart? Mr. Speaker, this is where your heart and soul is. You have to have a heart, and you have to have a soul. If you're going to direct a government to spend $25.9 million in COVID health care and safety measures, that's where your heart and that's where your soul is, Mr. Speaker. You must have a heart as the leader of a government to spend $118 million in government funding and unemployment assistance. You must have a heart. You must have a soul, Mr. Speaker. You must have a heart. You must have a soul as the leader and as a government. Spend $32.8 million or directed in social service assistance. If that isn't a heart, if that isn't evidence of a soul for your Bahamian people, I don't know what is, Mr. Speaker. You must have a heart. You must have a soul, Pine Ridge, when $44.4 million is given in government payroll support assistance. You must have a heart. That's evidence of a soul. You must have a heart, Mr. Speaker, when you spend $53.3 million in business, continuity support for Bahamian entrepreneurs or small businesses. That's a heart. That's a soul for small businesses, for entrepreneurs. Notwithstanding the suffering and the reduction in our government revenue. Speaker, you have to have a heart. You have to have a soul when you spend over $260 million in tax concessions for residents of Abaco and residents of Grand Bahama. You have to have a heart. That's evidence, Mr. Speaker. I don't know what more heart, much more soul you can get than that in Grand Bahama and in Abaco. But Speaker, you have to have a heart. You have to have a soul. When we're giving free education. Mr. Speaker, I went to L.N. Coakley with the great number from Exumas and Ragged Island. He was my head boy 2 years. Head boy 2 years after him. And so I hear the member for South Beach speak about the Catholic education. My daughter's a soccer. I had that Catholic education before I went to the great L.N. Coakley. But as a student coming in, I was privileged, Mr. Speaker, to have gotten a scholarship coming out of L.N. Coakley to go to the College of the Bahamas. Sometimes I sit back and I say, wow, boy, I wish I had that, what, $400 or $500? $500 a month. You know what that means, Mr. Speaker, for a young family island resident? I think Bahamians have to sit back sometimes, particularly Nasuvians, and think about the challenges that some of our family island students have. And for government to not only say that we're going to give you free education at the College of the Bahamas, free education at BTBI, but to say on top of that, we can make sure that you have a place to stay. We can make sure that you have some money to buy some grocery. We can make sure the fact that your mom and papa in Ruleville, Exuma, your mom and papa in Council Andres, your mom and papa in wherever, Cooperstown, they don't have to worry about. That's Mr. Speaker, that's a heart. That's soul, man. And you notice, Mr. Speaker, I rhyme and I rhythm. I just lay in the facts. Some people expecting and hoping that Bahamians forget, right? Bahamians, I see some people in here hoping that you forget. It Pines. Some people in this house hoping that you forget that this government took care of the landfill. Some people hoping that you forget that we responded to your needs during COVID. Some people hoping that you forget that social service and NIB assisted you when the government didn't necessarily have the revenue. My friends in Pines who work for the government of the Bahamas, some people hoping that you forget that unlike other countries in the Caribbean where governments laid off or fired their people, that this F&M government had a heart. This F&M government had a soul. This F&M government made sure that you stayed on the job. So I beg you, cry shame on them. Do not forget, vote F&M. Speaker, Accelerated Bahamas program will respond. The Accelerated Bahamas program will be responsive to every Bahamian's need. And so, Mr. Speaker, when I speak about family island development, as I started to speak about earlier, if I speak about that, I cannot leave, Mr. Speaker, without touching on that, the special economic zone for the Southern Bahamas. People always ask, Mr. Speaker,
Chair recognizes the honorable member for Southern Shores.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the business of this House proceeds beyond the 7 o'clock today.
Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the business of this House extend beyond the 7 p.m. hour. As many members that are in favor will remain seated, those who oppose will stand. The business of this House will extend beyond the 7 p.m. hour. Chair recognizes the honorable member for Tall Pines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I said, people always question, and they hear me talk about Exuma, so they think he's an Exuma boy. They hear me talk about Andres, so they say, oh, he's an Exuma man. I mean, an Andres man. They hear me talk about Grand Bahama, and they wonder. I always say this, Mr. Speaker, and I'm going to say it again. I pride myself on being one of those fortunate beings who got the opportunity to school and live here in Nassau. Had the blessings to move to Exuma and live there for 6 years. Had the blessing, Mr. Speaker, to go in Grand Bahama afterwards and live in Grand Bahama. Got a beautiful, supportive, wonderful wife there. Then come back to Nassau. That's because, Mr. Speaker, that's why when I stand and I speak, I could speak of the Bahamas in its totality. I could speak about the experiences of Family Islands residents. I could speak of the experience of Grand Bahama. I could speak of the experiences of Nassau. And so that's why, Mr. Speaker, I'm so happy that this government responded to the Family Islands, responded to Grand Bahama. $11.2 million in additional assistance to Lukai and Renewed Holdings, Speaker. $2.6 million in assistance to water and sewage. And we spoke about how much pipe being laid in Cat Island and other islands of the Bahamas, Long Island. $34.5 million in payroll and operational support for Bahamas Air, a necessity for our Family Islands. We could have easily said, listen, we have to worry about Bahamas Air no more. It's a bad time. It's a good opportunity for us to get rid of it. $4.1 million in operational support for the Airport Authority, again, important for the Family Islands, and flight services, $4.6 million. And so, Mr. Speaker, beyond that, the special economic zone for the Southern Bahamas will spur economic development on these islands, encourage our residents to invest in their homes, to build new, better communities. Persons who live in Nassau to invest in building those Family Islands, stir up construction and other business activities. Mr. Speaker, and it doesn't end there. We're talking about $21 million for the Rand Memorial Hospital, Pine Ridge. We're working with the Family Island. And I want to encourage every person in the Southern Bahamas to take full advantage of this opportunity to build your island. Take full advantage of this opportunity to build your island. Speaker, as a Nassau / Grand Bahama / Nassau boy, I want to say this. If there was a time when we needed a doctor, this administration or this administrative term was the time we needed a doctor, and I thank God that we had a doctor. I thank God, Mr. Speaker, if there was a time that we needed persons to focus on fiscal responsibility, given those catastrophes. Imagine if this government wasn't focused on fiscal responsibility. Where would we be now? If there was a time for it, it was in this term. And the people of the Bahamas elected Tall Pines and elected majority F&M government. If there was a time, Mr. Speaker, for an accelerated Bahamas recovery plan that speaks, Mr. Speaker, the public health, the social support, the domestic economy, the existing employment, the government reform, this is that time. If there was a time, Mr. Speaker, when the government needed to put extra focus on job creation, small business development, tourism development, digitalization, public and private sector investment, this is the time. Mr. Speaker, if there was a time, Mr. Speaker, almost sounding like Pine Ridge. If there was a time, Mr. Speaker, when we need to invest in healthcare, when we need to invest in education, when we need to put emphasis on farming and fisheries, and when a time when we needed the right leadership, this is the time. And I say to every Bahamian, particularly, Mr. Speaker, every member of my Great Tall Pines constituency, do not forget. Somebody said to me the other day, Mr. Speaker, Don, you should have tell your government hold out on fixing the landfill to now. And I said, no, sir. We don't do that in the F&M. We don't play politics on people's lives. We don't play politics on people's health. We don't play politics on people's greatest investment. We don't play politics on people's children. We do what needs to be done, and we do what needs to be done now. And so, yes, some people in Tall Pines might say, well, that was done 2 years ago. Some people might say, well, forget about the community center. Some people might say, forget about the roads that were paved. Some people might say, yeah, forget about the homework center. Forget about all of this corporate outreach you've done. That's what the PLP wants you to do. But I say to them, it's been a challenging 3 years, 4 years. And some of us may say, boy, this is the hardest 3 years for any, 4 years for any group of members of parliament. But I say to the people of Tall Pines, God put me here, you put me here for this season. And I want to have that opportunity to work with this great free national movement government to take Tall Pines to greater heights. I want us to be able to come back before this House next year to present a budget to the Bahamas that's going to show us doing even greater things for our people. I want us, Mr. Speaker, to stand here with Kalani after the next election. Hopefully Tall Pines on that side of the House saying to them, we are going to build a better Tall Pines, we're going to build a stronger Tall Pines, and we're going to build a greater Bahamas, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hope, Mr. Speaker, that every member of Tall Pines constituency come to understanding that your member of parliament stood here for the last 4 years, probably spoke more than any backbencher in this House. Because I understand my responsibility as a legislator. I also respect my responsibility as a community leader. Mr. Speaker, I thank every member of Tall Pines for this opportunity to serve. I encourage them in closing, Mr. Speaker. Do not listen to the rhyme and the rhythms. Listen to facts. Study for yourself. Take advantage of the opportunities that this free national movement have put in place for your benefit. Mr. Speaker, I say to this government, to this leader in Kalani, that Tall Pines will continue to pray for him. Tall Pines will continue to support him. Tall Pines will continue to work and work hard for the best interest of every citizen of Tall Pines. That is why, Mr. Speaker, this member for Tall Pines supports this plan for growth. This plan for growth accelerated Bahamas recovery plan. And I thank the members of Tall Pines for this opportunity to serve and to say, Mr. Speaker, that Tall Pines supports this 2021-2022 budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member Osmani. Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Carmichael. Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Southern Shores.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the business of the House suspends until tomorrow morning, 9th of June, 10 a.m., Wednesday, the 9th of June, 2021, 10 a.m.
Thank you, honorable members. Honorable members, just before I put the question, the honorable member for Tall Pines, in giving his condolences, mentioned the family of one of my very, very dear friends. I grew up with Peter the Macaroni Chilcoot. And from about the age of 12, we grew up together, we played basketball together on the Bex Cougars Sporting Club. The Cud, as we called him, was the center on that team, and I was the power forward. But our relationship started even before basketball, because I always tell my best friend, the member for South Beach, that anytime in that era, a government high student and a St. Augustine College student were friends, you knew you had a friendship. Because there was a great rivalry between government high, GHS, and SAC. And when we played with the Bex Cougars. One lesson I could say that Jill could taught me, that was discipline and desire. I remember when we would wake out, when it would get painful, we would run from the Prairie Grounds all the way over Paradise Island Bridge and back through the Prairie Grounds before we even started the practice. And when it became very painful, he would always say, "We can't stop now." The reason why we can't stop now is the guys who we have to beat, they would be prepared to stop now. And late in the games, we would come across with more endurance because Joker would encourage us to run through the pain. Run through the pain. And he'd always say, "No pain, no gain." He elevated his game and he became the starting center for the Minnesota Gophers in the United States of America. And he was the starting center prior to Michael Sweetbells Thompson introduction into basketball. And when he came back home, I could always remember late in the game, if he blocked a shot or he dunked on someone, he would stand over his fallen opponent and he'd ask him, "Boy, what your mama cook?" Was it ham? And I saw His Excellency, the Ambassador to China, Sterling Robert Lloyd Quant, paid a tribute to Jilka. There were fierce rivalries on the Bex Cougars and the Kentucky Colonels team in those days. And his comments were so fitting. And I had a challenge from the time I heard about Gilcud's death, making a statement, because Gilcud is actually my son's godfather, was my son's godfather, and I'm his daughter's godfather. That's how deep our friendship goes. So on behalf of all the Prairie Rats and the Bex Cougars, we extend our condolences to Peter Macaroni Gilcud's family. May his soul rest in peace and rise in glory. Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the business of this House suspends until 10 a.m. Wednesday, the 9th of June. As many members that are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. The business of this House stands suspended until 10 a.m. Wednesday, the 9th of June.